Yeah, 'cause he's back. He's the man behind the mask. Hey, Wolfpack. Catastrophe here. Got my 500 waters to drink in between the stream, and good thing because today we're doing a surprise stream on the Jason saga. We're doing all 12 of the Friday the 13th movies. Oh, the irony. Yeah, sorry, we're not going to be counting the Never Hike Alone saga. I know they are great. I know they're classics. I know they carry the spirit of the film, but we are going to stick with official Jason's movies. They had to have been released in theaters. Oh, good. Got a lot of people out today. Hey, Network 98. Hi, Kat. Hi, Akira. Also, I remember Jason versus Michael in Death Battle. Yeah, I remember that too. Spoiler alert, Jason won because he's awesome. Jason's the immortal killer, while Michael Myers is supernatural sometimes, but a normal guy otherwise, and Jason is consistently supernatural, so he won out. I know, some people are gonna ask why didn't we do this stream on Friday the 13th since that's only a few days away. Well, truth be told, I might be busy because one of my crossovers is finally coming to fruition, and I didn't want to have to delay working on the Goosebumps crossover I've planned, so I wanted to do it early and ahead of time. I figured, who cares, people will watch it either way. It was kind of dull with a distract with the victims. Yeah, I guess it was. So, we're doing a tier list on Friday the 13th. If you somehow don't know this, Friday the 13th is a classic horror saga with the infamous horror icon, the hockey mask zombie killer Jason Voorhees. Jason Voorhees was a kid who attended Camp Crystal Lake until one day he accidentally died when the counselors neglected him, and he was trying to swim despite not being good at it, where Jason drowned to death, only to somehow survive and come back as a supernatural killer, murdering anyone who trespasses on his death grounds. It's a bit up in the air if Jason was a normal guy from the start who turned supernatural, or if he was always supernatural since his birth. There's apparently a fan theory that Jason is a Deadite from the Evil Dead saga, which would explain how he's so hard to kill, why he's immune to pain, and how he has this supernatural strength and can survive stuff that would kill any normal slasher killer. Friday the 13th was initially a ripoff of Halloween, but from part 2 onward it kind of grew its own identity, and Jason sort of outclassed Michael Myers for a lot of people. Now, these movies are not high art. They're like the Final Destination saga. They're dumb fun horror movies. Jason is scary. There's a lot of terror, tension, really cool kills and gore, but it's mostly fun. It's more about the crazy, over-the-top, dark antics, the horror, the silly humor, the funny characters, Jason's murder spree, and how the final girl or hero is going to combat such a powerhouse supernatural killer. Hello there, cannot hear you due to me being at school, but will appear every now and then. Yeah, that's fine, just some random guy. You could always watch this when it's done. Also, Jason in MKX is just have an X-ray that feels so dull. Yeah, Mortal Kombat has Jason Voorhees, and honestly, his moves are not as impressive. I actually think the Alien and Predator are cooler in MKX than Jason is. Sorry, I just need my water. I'll be drinking that in between every few sentences, but I want to stay hydrated to talk about 12 movies straight. So, there are 12 Jason movies out of, ironically, a 13 saga. Rumor has it there's going to be a prequel show about Mrs. Voorhees and how she raised Jason before the movie 1's events. Apparently, the prequel series, I believe it's called Crystal Lake, is made by Brian Fuller, who made the Hannibal series, which does give me hope that this could be really good. However, given how bad we've had it with horror lately, it could also be a steaming pile of crap. but we'll hold out hope. Unfortunately, that's not released at the time of this stream, so we're doing the main 12 movies that were released in theaters. Yeah, shockingly, Jason has never had a direct-to-video phase like Pinhead did. Freddy and Jason were very lucky. They had all their movies released in theaters, and many of them were great hits and some weren't. Yeah, you'll probably figure out which weren't if you're a hardcore Jason fan. I don't know how to feel about that. The prequel show. Yeah, I'm not sure how to feel. It's gonna be mostly about Mrs. Voorhees. Jason's still going to be a kid, but apparently there's rumors that we are gonna see Jason grow up into the killer, so time will tell how that forges. I mean, Brian Fuller did a great job with Hannibal. He actually made the Ridley Scott story so much better. And he did do a decent job with Red Dragon. It did not outclass the Ray Fiennes movie for me. I thought that movie's like perfection, but his attempts were pretty good, and he's very much caring about his writing and source material. We'll have to come back once I'm done seeing how you responded to my comments. Okay, don't worry, we're gonna be here a while. Alright, so I gotta explain the tier list if you're a newbie here. This is how it works. We're gonna be ranking all the films based on how great they are. We have all these different slots telling you how much I love or hate them. We have Slasher Classic. These are S tier. These are the horror masterpieces. These are the epic Jason titles. Ones I highly recommend, ones I absolutely love, perfect 10 out of 10 content, and I really like them, and I think they're perfect representations of what made the Friday saga so awesome. Speaking of which, we have Awesome Mask. These were the good movies, not great. Sorry, I got something in my throat. Awesome Mask, these are good, not great. These were titles that were definitely decent, had their fun, had a lot of highlights, but are far from perfection. I would say they are watchable. Then we have Beta Shelly. Damn it, Shelly. These are okay. They're average. They're decent. They're mediocre, but they had some good, but some bad. These are ones that fall right smack in the middle. They had their highlights. There was definitely good ideas here. However, there was an equal amount of bad stuff which held it back. These are average. I would say they're okay to watch, but you're not going to get the S-tier Jason out of them. Hi everyone, I'm just dropping by. Hey V Scorpio. You're probably going to put 1 and 2 in the same category given how they're basically just the same movie. Well, the second one had Jason in it, which makes it better. Alright, I'm going for now, but we'll be back. Okay, see ya. Then next we have Roy Burns Wannabe. These are the weak ones. They had a speck of hope. There was definitely a good concept here, but it ended up falling very short. It's one that needs improvement, below average. There was hope there, but it didn't quite reach. And then, dead last, we have Dead Fuck. You can guess how good these ones are. It's the trash, the awful ones, the dead fucks who aren't gonna get any. They are the worst Jason titles. And you're probably going to see the ones you most likely predict are gonna be on here. All my Jason fans should know what's gonna make Dead Fuck. But with that, let's begin. So we are going in chronological order. As you can see, we have movie 1 all the way to the reboot, which was the last movie ever released in theaters. And I think, yeah, part one. Part 1 is the one that started it all, and ironically, the one without Jason. This is the one where that started the formula. Some teens are reopening Camp Crystal Lake, a camp that has an infamous reputation. Bad things have been happening around Crystal Lake, and there's a mysterious killer in this one, working behind the scenes, offing camp counselors, offing civilians, and trying to prevent the camp from reopening, basically. And to do that, they're crossing the line of murder. This is the one where we follow a group of very average teens who are not very interesting characters. They're pretty much your typical archetypes. We have the prankster guy, the strong jock, the smart guy, the final girl, the dorky girl, the girl who sleeps around with a lot of the guys. It's got a death curse. Yeah, speaking of which, the most memorable character in this are the Killer and Crazy Ralph. Crazy Ralph was so awesome. They made a huge mistake killing this guy off in movie 2. Crazy Ralph is this weird homeless guy who goes around on his bike and warning people that they will die, that the camp is cursed, because he knows about the killings, but nobody believes him, which is why he's called Crazy Ralph. The guy playing him was definitely giving the best performance next to the Killer. And yeah, we get to the either greatest pro or worst con of this one. The Killer is not Jason. The Killer is Mrs. Voorhees, played by the great Betsy Palmer. She's actually the killer of the first movie, and she's doing so to avenge the death of her son. She's killing all these teens, picking them off one by one, because she's avenging her dead boy who was killed by stupid idiot teenagers neglecting her son, going off and having sex or partying, while he went out and drowned. Basically, she blames them. The highlight of this movie is, of course, Betsy Palmer. She delivers easily the best performance in this. She is scary, but also sympathetic. She's this grieving mother who snapped and went crazy, kind of in a reverse Norman Bates kind of mentality. Norman went crazy when his mom died. Here, Jason's mom went crazy when her son died, and she's basically avenging Jason's death, however, very clearly crossed the line into monster territory. I say it's still a plus, mainly since she made a good performance of a mother losing her sanity after losing Jason. Yeah, definitely. Betsy Palmer is awesome in this movie. I thought she was super scary, especially when she snaps and goes psychotic. Has like this kind of crazy hallucination / split personality where she's talking to her son like, "Kill her, mommy, kill her. Yes, Jason, I will for you." And she has like these crazy stalker / predator style killings. Like Betsy Palmer is like playing up the hunter aspect greatly. She's like this twisted primal animal hunting the teenagers down. Unfortunately, this also has one of my least favorite final girls, Alice. My problem with Alice is she's boring. Okay, Alice is boring. She is the most generic final girl, and she was easily outclassed by Ginny in every way possible. Like, that's my problem with part 1. A lot of the characters are kind of boring. Like, Alice is the main focus, and Steve Christie is kind of a red herring. He's actually a very reliable adult, and he has one of the creepiest deaths because we don't see what happens to him, but it's implied he recognized the killer when he was walking towards her. I do think part 1 also has a lot of pacing issues. This one is a lot slower. It's not a kill every few minutes. It is a total murder mystery, but they kind of cheat because we don't see Mrs. Voorhees until the final act. Like, they try throwing red herrings at you, like Steve Kirstie because he has the same car as Pamela, or it could be Crazy Ralph because he's crazy, even though he's ironically warning people to run away. And some of the teens, like, very disappear when someone dies. I do think part 1 just has its slow moments. However, there is a lot of tension and atmosphere in this movie. It makes great use of the dark, like Mrs. Voorhees is constantly in shadow, and we don't see her. It is a first-person perspective for at least 80% of the movie. She doesn't strike until she's all alone with the final girl, Alice. Which I thought, like, made it creepier because we don't see Mrs. Voorhees for the longest time, and a lot of people praise that because it'll trick newbie viewers into thinking it's Jason, only to reveal, surprise, it's actually his mom, which, I don't know, does that really count when it makes the movie retroactively better? It wasn't something like they really planned when they started this. I do think that makes it good, but yeah, I am a bit mixed on this because I do think it's probably the most generic movie in the bunch, but everybody loves it as a horror classic. I do get my kicks out of this movie, and of course, like, Mrs. Voorhees is definitely the pro that's carrying this movie. Ironically, Betsy Palmer said she didn't really care for this movie. She did it because she needed a car payment and got a big paycheck out of it. Though you can hardly tell because Betsy Palmer really cared about acting in this movie because she was definitely having fun with it. It wasn't like one of her career highlights to her, but she did own the role totally and became the best part for that. I miss when actors were still professional even on movies they didn't care for. I mean, it definitely fooled Drew Barrymore's character in Scream 1. Yeah, it kinda did. Wrong answer. Jason wasn't the killer in the first movie, it was his mother, Mrs. Voorhees. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that because everyone's still shocked that Mrs. Voorhees is the killer in the first movie. Speaking of which, there is kind of a long, dragged-out fight with the final girl. It is cool at first, and Mrs. Voorhees is definitely menacing, but I do think Alice makes a lot of stupid mistakes in this. Like, she knocks out Mrs. Voorhees 2 times, and not once does she ever kill her, or at least lock her up, take away her weapon so she doesn't, wake up and go back to hunting her. It, happens so many times, and she just beats up Pamela, then runs away and goes sleep somewhere, because I'm sure she won't come back and look for you. But surprise, she does. She gets up and goes back to stalking her. But it does lead to the cool final fight on, the beach where they're fighting, and Alice finally grabs Mrs. Voorhees' own machete and beheads her, leading to the most iconic kill in this, next to Kevin Bacon's arrow neck kill. Yeah, this is the one where Mrs. Voorhees dies. She gets decapitated and her head is lost forever. Or is it? And Alice basically wins. She, for some reason, doesn't go driving back to town and just sleeps in a canoe out in the lake. And then we get the weird twist ending where she wakes up, sees the cops, and then Jason hops out of the lake and drowns her. But then she wakes up, it was all just a dream and she was in the hospital. However, the movies kind of go back and forth over whether it was a dream or if it really happened. I think one of the writers even said, oh, it really happened, the zombie boy did jump her, but then someone says, no, it was just a dream, but then part 2 confirms that Jason really was alive, and then the reboot movie showed, oh, Jason actually saw his mom get beheaded that night. Which, yeah, if you haven't realized, continuity's kind of all over the place with this saga, but usually the films were fun, so you didn't care. So, Part 1, I might put in Awesome Mask. I know I'm gonna piss off a lot of people for not putting it in S tier, but I think this one is pretty good, not great. This one definitely has a lot of good scares, a lot of high tension, creepy atmosphere, and Betsy Palmer is an underrated slasher killer. I think it is an awesome movie, but it does have a few flaws, which do hold it back from the top tier for me. I know, I'm sorry. A lot of people say blasphemy because this is the classic one. How could you hate movie number 1? It's the original recipe, but, I do think it is fine, but not flawless. So I guess we should go to part 2. Oh, this is the one I really love. Sorry, I need some water because part 2 is my absolute favorite in the saga. This one is great. I love part 2. This is the one where Jason officially becomes the killer, and I think it upgraded everything that was good about the first movie and made it better. Emily, you made it! It's wolfin' time! Sup, cat? Made it just in time, Emily. We're on part 2, the one where Jason actually comes in to be a part of the plot. Yeah, part 1 made Awesome Mask, so part 2, I am putting on Slasher Classic. Yeah, this one is great. I love this one. It has the scariest tension, the most savage kills, the creepiest Jason in my mind, and one of the best final girls ever. If you didn't see, the final girl made my top 10 hottest final girls list, and of course she's a part of one of the best Jason movies. Now, I know, there is one thing people hate in this, and it's Jason's mask. This is where Jason had the sack head mask. He had like a burlap sack, the potato sack that he wore over him, and he kind of looks like a Klansman in this movie. But honestly, I think that actually made him kind of creepier because he's a more realistic killer in this version. We don't meet supernatural OP Jason just yet. Jason is far more sinister. Jason on that town, that dreaded sundown fit. I think your comment kind of got mistranslated, Emily. Can you believe I've never made the connection that he looks like a Klansman, but you're right. Yeah, Jason looks kind of like a Klansman because he has like the white sack. It's kind of pointy at the top, but he also has the eye holes that make him look ghost-like. And it is pretty cool. I do think, yeah, he's like more of a hillbilly in this version. This is where Jason is a misshapen, crazy mountain man hermit living in the woods. He's not quite the undead supernatural zombie, but they do treat him like a legend, which I really like. No, that's what it was supposed to say. There's a set of movies called The Town That Dreaded Sundown. Oh, okay, you're referencing the movie that had the exact same mask, okay. And the two notable things is the Baghead Killer and Trumpet Death. Yeah, I think the Trumpet Death came a little later. But part 2, awesome. It is a slasher classic. I think this is still one of the scariest Friday the 13th movies. Jason is kind of shrouded in shadow, just like his mother was. A lot of people hate that, but I kind of like that we're building up to Jason. Like, they try to fool you into thinking it's someone avenging Mrs. Voorhees, and they're talking about the legend of Jason, who's sort of grown up into this mythical boogeyman living out in the woods. Like, it's at this point, Jason has not gained his high kill count, so there is kind of some worthy dread here that you don't know how dangerous Jason actually is. He operates a lot more like a hunter in this movie, and I find that so creepy. It is so scary seeing all these shots of him like stalking people, hiding behind bushes, hiding in the trees in the dark. We see shadows and glimpses of him, but we don't see the full Jason until later in the final half hour. Jason going to school with these counselors with facts and logic with the First Amendment of Crystal Lake rights. Emily, you're so funny. Glad you could make it, Emily. You made it early this time. I'm talking about Friday the 13th earlier because I might be busy this coming Friday, so I figured, yeah, why not get it out of the way now? Part 2 is one of my all-time favorites. It has a much more colorful cast with better chemistry than the first movie. The counselors still have, like, their one-note traits, but there's a lot more charm and persona to them. They're a lot more entertaining in this movie. Ginny especially, Paul, the head counselor, is kind of cool guy. There's this funny southerner cowboy guy, there's a trickster, there's a girl who is used as the fake-out final girl. She's like dating the cowboy and she's curious about Crystal Lake, along with Ginny. It tries to fool you into thinking which one will die, which one will live. There's the guy in the wheelchair who has the most memorable death in this movie. Like, and then there's the prankster character, too, in this one, who's a lot more pervy, but all good stuff. This one also has a lot better nudity, because there's, like, 2 token hot chicks. We get to see them hot and sexy before Jason guts them completely Mortal Kombat style. Where's Paul? That was one of the biggest questions still left. So, yeah, it's a bit of the same stuff, but Jason's a lot more built up too, and he gains a much higher body count than Mommy ever did. Basically, the counselors are trying to reopen the campground again, but this time Jason is there and he's spying upon them, and he's carrying on his mother's legacy. As we later find out at the bar, the counselors go hang out and we get some character depth for Ginny. Ginny wants to become a child psychologist, which is foreshadowing for the climax. Mortal Kombat kill in a later movie, lol. Jason Voorhees, yep, you bet. He's the man behind the mask. Like, Ginny talks with Paul and one of their friends about Jason, and we actually do get some character and build up to him. Like, they talk about how Jason is actually a tragic villain in a way, because he's avenging the death of his mother and seemingly carrying on her work from part 1. Jason witnessed his mother's death, took her head back and built a shrine around her, kind of Norman Bates style, and basically is carrying on the legacy. He just wants to be left alone in the woods. He's killing people out of anger and misguided hate. He just wants his mom back and wants to be alone with her, be happy again, like they were before all the tragedy happened. And this did give Jason a lot more depth than most killers, because Jason is actually a very tragic figure when you really think about it. Oh, part 9? No, wait. Part 13, yeah. X33, yeah, that's 13. Very cool. Yeah, Jason is in Mortal Kombat X, but sadly, he doesn't get to fight Freddy. So yeah, they explore Jason's character. He's picking off all the sexy teens and camp counselors one by one, and for the longest time, we don't see Jason. They do the Jaws effect, which I felt was very effective. We don't actually see him. We catch glimpses of him, see him in shadows, see his arms pick up weapons, watch his, feet walking about. One of the scariest shots is we see the shadow of him casted against one of the walls, and it is so creepy because Jason doesn't talk. He's one of the silent killers, which made him like this threatening shark ready to strike at any moment. One of the brutal kills is he kills 2 people who are having sex by impaling them on a spear through their bed, and it is savage. Jason is a primal beast in this. This one had a lot more hardcore kills than part 1 did. Like, Jason impales a couple having sex on the same sphere. He chops the wheelchair guy's face and throws his chair down a cliffside or, stairs. And he's, rolling down, dying, falling down stairs in the chair. And Jason strangles Crazy Ralph to death, the most saddest death. Crazy Ralph dies. He gets strangled with barbed wire, and it is pretty brutal. Though I'm kind of questioning why Crazy Ralph was walking the campgrounds when he knows it's dangerous too. But whatever. And this girl is impaled with a knife through the door. Very gruesome kills. One of my favorites also is the sheriff who actually spots Jason and chases after him through the woods. It is a very creepy scene too, because this lone overweight sheriff is chasing him in the forest. We see a brief glimpse of the Klansman Jason before he runs off into the woods. He chases him all the way to the iconic Jason's cabin, which all my video game fans should recognize. Also, Jason is in the multiverse like WB Games. Just give Jason less bloody kills. Kind of hard when he wields a machete and knives, but whatever. Glad to see more Jason love. He chases the sheriff into, his cabin, and there's this creepy scene where the sheriff finds his secret room. He sees something horrifying, but we don't see what it is, and he's like, OMG. Then Jason is, sneaking up behind him ninja style and hammers him in the back of the head, and it is also a brutal kill and very effective foreshadowing for what really is hidden there. Oh yeah, I forgot, he's in the multiverse. He looks a little weird proportionately, but it was cool that he showed up. So, if you didn't see my final girls, I kind of talked about the climax. In the end, all the counselors are picked off or disappeared. Then Ginny eventually gets into this epic chasing with Jason. It is very scary because they heighten how alone she is, how completely vulnerable she is. She's running for her life. She does get a few good punches in, but Jason keeps coming back for more, and he will not stop until she's dead. A lot of creepy running through the cabins, hiding in the woods. Very unsettling scenes, and here we finally see what Jason looks like, and we see the Klansman sackhead look, where he does look pretty creepy. I know everyone loves the hockey mask, and I do too, but I do think this looks just as scary, because this is a much more like a beginner Jason. This is Jason in his early days, kind of like how Batman is in year 1. It's like a prototype look to him, and I do think it's very creepy because Jason doesn't fully look like Jason, which does add kind of a sense of character development to him. Also, Jason never talks in the movies except the comics, a sequel, and Ash vs. Jason vs. Freddy made his first word. Oh, I remember that. Yeah, Jason does talk as a child, technically. Help me, mommy, help me. That was his first words ever, so technically he did talk, just not as an adult killer. Also, I wish Catwoman and Daphne be in the multiverse, since I see Velma as just a playable character that doesn't fight. I thought Catwoman was in the multiverse. I know Black Cat made it in, but I thought for sure Selina would be there too. Eventually, cool chase scene, Ginny finally makes it to Jason's cabin where she hides, and we discover Jason's dead mother. He built a shrine for her severed head, and it looks so gruesome and disgusting, so gothic horror. It reminded me of classic Psycho, basically, with Mother and her corpse appearing. Yeah, Jason built like this candle shrine and worships her religiously. Unfortunately, the later films would not look into this more until Never Hike Alone 2, but very cool. I wish I still had the Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash comics. I gave them to someone a few years ago, I don't remember who. I also enjoyed Jason vs. Leatherface comic. Yeah, those comics really got crazy. I know Linkara talked about them. I do like Jason's hockey mask with the half cut off below, and he has like a skull mouth. Makes him look very, very like creepy and satanic. Really cool, especially because Jason might be a Deadite, if you believe that fan theory. Ginny hides in the shrine room, and she takes Mrs. Voorhees' sweater, which Jason somehow took also, and she wears it and uses her child psychology skills to manipulate Jason and his warped mind. Jason is mentally challenged. Betsy Palmer confirmed this, that Jason was mentally disabled, he can't operate well, and he doesn't think very well outside of his primal hunter mode. She uses it and dresses and acts like the late Mrs. Voorhees, and this actually fools Jason because he just wants his mother back, and he believes like she's alive again and kneels before her thinking Ginny is her. He does eventually fall for it until he snaps out of it when Ginny makes a small error and shows like he catches her severed head in a glimpse and then fights back. Then Paul shows up to save the day, where they beat up Jason. The games kind of touches on it too, with the Pamela Shrine and her calling out and commanding Jason, and then him returning to the cabin at the end of every match. Well, I know that, Emily. I just mean the film-wise. Like, they don't explore it movie-wise. You had to buy the game to cover up all the plot holes and lore that wasn't explored that people wanted to see. I've actually seen people get red-faced angry over the Necronomicon cameo and its implication. Yeah, that Jason and Ash share the same universe, and Pamela Voorhees used the Necronomicon to try and revive Jason, where he came back as a Deadite, but apparently his body was elsewhere and just never found her in all that time. Yeah, I'm more pissed that Jason had a sister this whole time, who was never important until movie 9. So yeah, Paul saves Ginny, they go back, and we get our twist ending. Surprise, Jason didn't die from a machete to the chest, and we get a fake out where they save the dog, and then Jason breaks through the window, jumps Ginny, and we see his unmasked face where he looks like Jack Black with sex diseases. Yeah, he looks like Jack Black as the Elephant Man, and we see it was all just a dream, just like the first one, except Paul has disappeared, and Ginny's being taken to the hospital. She survived, which I'm very glad because, of course, Ginny's my favorite final girl. Well, if you want to get technical, at one point in time, Hellraiser, Nightmare Friday, Evil Dead, Texas Chainsaw, we're all going to be in the same universe. Yeah, the games kind of confirm that with Tommy Jarvis being moved to a lot of the asylums. He was like in Haddonfield, then he was in the Chenard Institute, then he was in West Hills, the Freddy Asylum, and he was in Louisiana where he heard Victor Crowley crying in the swamplands. Very cool. But it also said that the cop, Rick, who arrested Tommy was in Shocker, but he shows up in Never Hike Alone too. So yeah, I think part two is great. There's this huge question where Paul went because we didn't see him killed. I do think Paul is dead because there is like leaked photos of Paul with like a dead body photo of Paul that went out there, and I believe this scene was kind of deleted or left on the cutting room floor, and they were supposed to imply Paul died because Mrs. Voorhees' head would smile and wink at the audience, implying that he was dead. I'm not sure how that works, but they thought it was too silly and deleted it. No, just Black Adam, Harley Quinn, Raven, Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman in Multiverse, then Starfire and Catwoman since they need a spotlight. Yeah, they should make it in. Part 2, I do love. It is a slasher classic to me. It is one of my favorite movies in the franchise. I still think it's the scariest, and it's the best movie without Tommy Jarvis. Definitely a slasher classic. Highly recommend. So we should move on to Friday the 13th, Part 3D. Oh boy. These are where the sequels started getting their love them or hate them reactions. So, part 3D is where we throw continuity right out the window. Jason apparently left his cabin in part 2 and went off somewhere else to heal himself, basically, because I guess his cabin would now be risk discovery since Ginny knows where it is. So Jason runs away and he's going to basically go lick his wounds and go heal himself, and Jason magically gets a body change in this where he turns into the bald, hulking, weirdo kind of looking Jason. And he goes on another killing spree when he hides, basically camps in this barn where a bunch of teenagers are going out to party, basically, because graduation or something, and the final girl, Chris, is like helping get closure on her past trauma by returning to her old family's barn. She apparently had this run-in with this creepy weirdo in the woods. Yeah, I wonder who it was. And she's trying to get some, like, closure, facing her trauma, facing her demons. And she's among friends who are just partying out here, helping her cheer up. But, uh-oh, Jason happens to be squatting at the barn that they're partying at, where he goes on another killing spree. So, I believe Jason did get his new clothes when he killed this gas station couple. Like, we do see Jason makes a pit stop as he's running away. He goes to hide in this gas station run by this over-the-top, campy old couple, and they get horribly killed, and I suppose Jason stole his new clothes because he gets his, like, farmhand clothes in this movie. Like, getting rid of his sackhead and hillbilly stuff. He loses his mask completely after part 2, and he's once again a bit shrouded in shadows building up to him, and we get a maskless Jason kind of running around and hiding. So this one has what I consider the worst aspect, which drops points from it, is the 3D aspect. It is so bad, so fake, and so obnoxious. The 3D movie really whores itself out to the 3D effect. There's always crap hitting you in the face, like jumping off the screen, like always going towards the camera. They like use a yo-yo coming at you, use all these poles coming at you, jump scares come at you, like one of Jason's knife stabs come at you, and a lot of annoying 3D gimmicks. It is exactly like that Fairly Odd Parents where they were watching 3D movies. Like, you remember? Like, darn, my laser gun's not working. Here, try my paddle ball. That is the type of 3D we're getting with. Wrong. Boo this man. Emily, you like 3D. Now, I will say, I used to hate 3D. However, I did watch it again all the way through, and I actually do think it's better than I thought. It is not top tier, but it does have the classic formula and a lot more colorful characters this time around. I do think Jason has his scary moments, but he's kind of off screen for a little too much, and the 3D crap gets annoying. Here's Jason. 3D is a gimmick that's totally going to work when they reintroduce it for like the 5th time in another couple years, and this time 3D gaming is going to work to people who are totally going to buy into it. I do think 3D is good, Emily, but the problem is Friday the 13th is not good 3D. It is bad 3D. It is just throwing crap at your face, and half of it doesn't even look good. It doesn't look convincing. It's always like pointing something at the camera and you're supposed to be, whoa, it's so impressive that this pole is almost gonna hit me. And it doesn't look good. Like Coraline and 9 were also 3D, and those looked awesome because they were action movies and horror movies where the scares look so close and in your face. Here, there's a lot of pointless 3D. They do like a bunch of random stuff heading towards your face. It's like barely Jason attacks or jump scares. It's just weird like objects coming towards you, and that's where I think it fails. However, this does introduce some fan-favorite characters, I won't deny. There are some faces people love. People actually love Chris, the final girl, because she has an interesting backstory tied into Jason. It turns out, spoilers, Jason was the man who traumatized her, and she, like, literally confronts him, and a lot of people really liked that. However, I don't like Chris because her acting is terrible. She is like, this has some really bad acting. She's like smiling in half the shots where she's supposed to be scared and chased by Jason. No, I don't want to do Friday the 13th part crazy 3D. We do Spy Kids 3D Nostalgia Critic even worse. Yeah, Spy Kids 3D was also another bad 3D movie. If you can tell, Beta Shelly is a reference to Shelly, who everyone actually loves because Larry Zermer, the guy playing him, had a lot of personality and a lot of depth. He was actually enjoyable, and he was like the only characters that felt like an actual character. He's like this fat loser nerd who wants to be an actor, and he basically pranks and trolls the other cast. He does have like some sympathy because he's the friend nobody likes, and they dragged him along because one of their friends needed like a double date or something. I will admit, I did like Shelly too. He was pretty funny and humorous. Definitely more interesting than Chris was, that's for sure. And of course, who could forget the biker gang? This is the one where they finally introduce like the asshole characters who were supposed to root for Jason to kill. And we meet the biker gang, like Fox, Loco, and Ollie, I believe are their names. Nostalgia Critic hated the Friday the 13th Part 3. Oh, he did? Yeah, I can understand. Part 3D is pretty much the most generic, formulaic Jason movie if you're a Friday fan. However, it really sucks because the 3D gimmick is in your face, and a lot of the acting is terrible, and Jason is kind of in the back. All his kills are in mystery, and I did not like it because Part 2 did this effectively because it was Jason's first movie. Here, we already know what he looks like. Why are we trying to hide him? Are we building up his face, which we also saw in the Part 2 movie? It's like Jason gets a whole new look, which I understand, but this is the one where Jason also gets his hockey mask. Like, this is the one where Jason gets his hockey mask and became cemented as a horror icon because the hockey mask became his trademark look. He kills Shelly and steals it from him because I guess Shelly was going to use the hockey mask to scare one of his friends. Which, yeah, I know, I'm glad Jason got his hockey mask, but unfortunately it came attached with a very mediocre movie with it. I did think Fox was pretty hot. She was way hotter than the final girl. She's like the sexy, badass black biker girl. She was pretty funny, and she actually did have some character because she regretted bullying them a little and was reluctant to sabotage their car, but she went along with it anyway, and she's rewarded a death by Jason. Yeah, she gets a really creepy kill where she's like screwing around swinging on a farm rope, and Jason apparently ninjas her because he grabs her, then impales her with a pitchfork up on the ceiling somehow. And I guess she doesn't bleed over her nice outfit because the actress didn't want to ruin her leather, I guess. The bikers get like all brutal deaths. Jason impales them with farm equipment and kills them all. And they're like the first, asshole victims who are characters we root to die so it could make Jason look cool. So we get the same shtick. Jason's picking off the teenagers one by one. Really creative kills, at least. I do like he kills the guy who's handstanding and walking around on his hands by slicing him in half when he doesn't see him. He throws a guy in an electric box. He impales a girl with a fireplace poker, and it looks really savage. And one of everyone's favorite kills, he kills the love interest by jumping him from the corner and squeezing his head until his eyeball pops out. My only problem is the eyeball looks fake. A lot of the gore in this looks exceptionally fake. That's another mark against it. It does look very bad, especially when Ali gets his hand sliced and you can see the fake prosthetic. I think every couple Fridays you get a movie like 3 or 7 where even though we understand what this era of Jason's going to be like, we get one that probably submits the formula or establishes it. Expectations. So eventually, Chris is left alone. She's the final girl fighting. She gets another long fight scene with Jason. It is very inventive. She's like fighting in a farm. She throws like a bookshelf at him that like drops a whole bunch of texts on him. She hides from him in the barn. She's on the roof. She strangles him and throws him out the window where he's hung, but Jason is not human at this point and somehow survives it. She manages to get his mask off where she see, surprise, Jason was the other creepy, ugly weirdo in the woods who attacked her in her younger years, and he's back for more. Dun dun dun. Hello, Cat just got here. Hey, Christopher, don't worry, we're only on part 3. If you didn't see, part 1 and 2 made it pretty high, but part 3 I'm a bit mixed on. Like, Chris fights Jason, and this is the one where she manages to leave the iconic injury on Jason. She eventually gets his axe and hits it in his head where an axe mark dents his hockey mask, and that is left for pretty much the entire series. The axe mark across Jason's head and mask is one thing they kept consistent throughout this entire saga. Like, Jason's axed in the head, and he still tries coming after her, but I guess he dies because the brain damage killed him, and he falls very anticlimactically in my mind. He, falls and dies, and Chris, for no reason, decides to not get in her car and get out of here. She instead takes a boat and sleeps until the police come. There's this really good fake-out dream, honestly, where she wakes up and she thinks she sees Jason who comes after her, and it is very creepy seeing him in the house. He was still looking for her in all that nighttime, and he breaks out, chases her, but then he disappears, and then the dream sequence is ruined when Mrs. Voorhees jumps out of the lake this time to drown the final girl. And it makes 0 sense. 1, how did Mrs. Voorhees get her head back on her body? And 2, the main girl has no idea who this even is. It's like she has a dream where she's attacked by Jason's dead mother, despite not even knowing who Jason and Mrs. Voorhees are. It makes no sense, and they try to write this off as, oh, it was just another dream, and Chris is being escorted by the police. However, unlike Ginny and Alice, she has gone full-blown crazy. She's, cracked and flipping out and laughing maniacally and taken to the asylum. I guess she didn't conquer her trauma. She instead got new trauma. and she's locked up in the paddy wagon. This one, I think I'm gonna put on Beta Shelly. There are actually parts I liked. I rewatched it again, and I actually thought it was much better in my recent viewing. However, I still think it is far from top tier. This one is a mediocre Jason movie. I hate dream sequences within dream sequences. Remake of Wicker Man all over again, and even that part in the PBS series of Odd Squad. Never watched that, so I don't know. Too bad there was no Friday movies in 1983 or 87, otherwise we'd have one in each decade of the 80s. They tried doing that. So yeah, part 3D is a Beta Shelly. There were some good moments, but a lot of glaring weaknesses. In particular, the 3D effects, the really hokey acting, and the fact that Jason is kind of barely in this one. Not as bad as later sequels, but still a pretty middling chapter. But now we get to the final chapter. Not really, it's just the fourth movie. Friday the 13th, the final chapter, which I think everyone agrees is a slasher classic. I think it is a slasher classic. The final chapter is the fan favorite one. It is a top tier title for many. This is the one that truly is a Jason movie. Jason is at his best. The formula is much stronger in this movie. The kills are savage as hell. We introduce the fan favorite character Tommy Jarvis, and it is all around a very creepy and savage Friday flick. Also, Billy Robin in Pooh Blood and Honey is a parody of Pooh Bear, being Jason of the Twisted Childhood universe. Yeah, that makes sense. I've never watched the Twisted Childhood universe. I know some people are recommending it, but we're probably not gonna do it. I just don't have any interest in it. I heard Blood and Honey, like the second one was better. The first one was the usual crap. Direct-to-streaming slasher junk. Unlike part 4, the final chapter, which I think is a very good classic. So, this was the one that was supposed to be the grand finale of the Jason saga, but then it made money and we got several other films later. Final chapter is awesome. It is a great Jason movie. Jason is back to scary in this one, and he is all over this film. And we actually meet victims that you actually care for. The victims have actual character arcs, have actual personas, actual charm, are actually funny, and you do actually care about them when they start dying and being picked off one by one. The fourth is great. Part 4 is a classic, and it's about as final as Final Fantasy. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, this was supposed to be the end of the saga. It is Tom Savini's last chapter, at least, so that counts. So, after the events of part 3, Jason is finally announced dead and his corpse is taken to the morgue where they're going to finally close the chapter on this. But, surprise, Jason is still alive, and we get a very creepy scene where he breaks out of the freezer he's put in and he kills his doctors and escapes the hospital, making his way back to Camp Crystal Lake. What do you think of Never Hike Alone, the fan-made Friday the 13th that Dead Meat did kill counts on? Oh, actually, Christopher, I did review Never Hike Alone. It is available on our channel, and you can see my thoughts there. But if you want the short version, yeah, I loved it. Really awesome fan work. Unfortunately, if you're new here, we are not counting the Never Hike Alone saga. Only official Jason content. Sorry, guys, I am a stickler for the rules on this one. Part 4 is so cool. This one really loves the Jason lore, actually wanted to deliver a very good story this time, and really upgrades the old formula, adding new twists, new turns, and very gruesome savage kills. Jason is pissed off in this version. He returns to Crystal Lake and we find out, oh, people are actually living here. There's houses here, the Jarvis family lives here, and a whole like a whole group of teen victims who came here to party. Jason has been announced dead, and things are going back to normal until Jason returns. Apparently, he walked all his way back to his town on foot from the hospital, and he starts picking off teenagers one by one. Also, why people love Jason times Carrie? I think because they were both abuse victims in their childhood, and both of them died, but also had supernatural powers and were more dangerous than the bullies ever thought they were. Alright. So in this one, basically, it's a whole bunch of kids being picked off. However, there is an actual new character everyone loves, Tommy Jarvis, and his sister Trish, who are actually the real main characters in this. And this actually gives you a lot more tension because we have a real little kid being hunted by Jason in this movie. Like, they beat Halloween 4's Jamie Lloyd by, I think 2 years at least. Where Tommy Jarvis is an innocent kid. He's trying to be cool and hang out with these teenagers. We meet fan favorite character Rob Deere, who's our pretend final guy hero who came here to hunt Jason to avenge the death of his sister, who died in part 2, basically. Rob Deere is like this professional Jason hunter, and he's used as this fake-out Dr. Loomis. He's been studying Jason, and you think there's going to be a big epic fight between them. Also, the telekinetic teenager. Yeah, we're going to get to that one soon. The characters have a relatability with both being victims of abuse and bullying, and a sympathetic edge to them, even though they kill people, so it's nice to see them find a kindred spirit and a friend. Yeah, that's part of the reason everyone loves carrying Jason together. Like, slasher flicks are very weird. As you can tell, the teenagers are a lot more fun. We actually see their wild parties. Crispin Glover actually got his start in this movie before he got in Back to the Future. He's one of the teenagers. He's the weird, shy guy nerd of the group. The one everyone calls a dead fuck, basically, because he can't get laid. Until he does. He gets his character arc where he scores with one of the hot twins from the Friday the 13th game. Also, isn't Hambone is the Jason clone in Carnival? Never watched that film, so I can't tell you. There's a webcomic called Camp Counselor Jason that has them meet each other as well, as a lot of other fun cameos and stories. Yeah, some of the camp counselors are very iconic. The final chapter has a lot more memorable characters this time. There's Rob, there's Trish, there's Crispin Glover, I can't remember his name, ironically. They're the sexy twins, there's the jokester guy, and there's the wholesome couple who are just pretty much Fred and Daphne in a Friday movie. He also played Grendel in Beowulf 2007 edition. Oh yeah, I remember watching that for school. Yeah, Crispin Glover was pretty funny. He's like this adorable nerd who finally gets laid. However, along the lines, Jason is here, and he is brutal in this movie. He is so pissed. We get a lot of harsh kills this time. He decapitates like a hitchhiker woman. He stabs Crispin Glover with the corkscrew. Hey, Ted, where's the corkscrew? And he stabs him with it, then cleavers him in the face. He throws a chick out the window. He breaks through the shower glass and crushes a guy's skull against the wall. He spear guns a guy in the nards on this harpoon gun I suppose he found. It is brutal. He stabs a girl through a raft as she's laying about in the Crystal Lake. Very hardcore kills in this one. Shout out to the Beowulf video game. Carnival is an arcade shooting game where you get Rickety Town, get Christmas, and a horror game. Never played it. Did Robot Chicken did Jason meets the Scooby Gang? Yes, they did. You can't find it on YouTube. The Scooby Gang, voiced by the movie cast, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Matthew Lillard, etc., we're trying to crack the case of Jason Voorhees, where Jason is killing them one by one. One of my favorite shorts. It is so hilarious. So yeah, Jason picks them off one by one. However, in a twist, like Rob Deere gets killed off. We get the very campy, cringy, oh god, he's killing me! He's killing me! The weird acting there, where Jason jumps him in the basement. Ironically, he's not the hero. Friday the 13th needs more sexy twins. Yes, it does. One of the twins made it in the video game. I believe she's Tiffany, voiced by the sexy Cherami Leigh, using her Lucy Heartfilia voice. Unfortunately, the twins die pretty horribly too. One of them gets impaled by a pitchfork, and you see her silhouette before she's thrown against the wall. Very creepy. Also, Velma getting in love with the masked villain who killed her friends at the end. Yeah, old man Phillips. Which carries over to the sequel with Seth Green and Velma's love interest. I wish Carnival got a re-release on Steam. It's something I've always wanted to play. Would also love the Splatterhouse trilogy and its reboot. Never heard of Carnival. Haven't played it yet. I've been playing some other things, but whatever. So we get a chase scene between Trish and Jason, and in a twist, Tommy Jarvis, who's been friends with Rob, actually studies Jason too, and he becomes the hero. He, shaves his head and uses his makeup skills. Tommy Jarvis is a monster horror movie fan. He makes makeup masks and really loves horror. He's kind of a self-insert of Tom Savini. Tommy shaves his head and makes himself look like Jason as a child, and Jason, as he's about to kill Trish, is distracted by this because Tommy reminds him of himself, and this distracts Jason long enough for the siblings to get the drop on him. Trish, stabs Jason's hand and splits it completely. Well, Jason knocks off Jason's mask, and we finally see what Jason looks like in full, and he looks like a gross, bloated zombie form of his childhood self from the first movie. He still tries to attack Trish, and then Tommy gets his machete and kills Jason for good. He stabs him He stabs him with the machete in the head. Jason falls and hilariously impales the machete further on the floor. And he dies before Tommy notices he's still twitching and cuts him to friggin' ribbons in rage, yelling, "Die! Die! Die!" And Jason finally dies, but at the cost. It's a bittersweet ending. They've lost their mom, they lost their neighbors, they lost all their friends and loved ones, and it is just the Jarvis siblings now, but it ends happily because Jason is at least dead, and then we imply Tommy might be the new killer. But not really, because this gets retconned and thrown back and forth, exactly like Jamie Lloyd being the new killer. Lucy Heartfilia's voice made by Tiffany. I wish Fairy Tail get live action, get Tiffany, actress from Friday the 13th, to play Lucy Heartfilia. Well, she might be a bit older now, and Cherami Leigh is awesome. I do not think we'll ever see Fairy Tail in live action because, let's face it, the women are just so hot that someone's gonna complain sexism if there's a single fan service shot. And then he dies. Also, Jason's unable to die in the movies. Who would win in a fight, Victor Crowley or Jason? I do think Jason, because he's still killing people as a zombie. Victor Crowley is still at least part human. I do think he's held back by that. He can still get hurt, still get injured, and still get stalled, whereas Jason can shrug off a lot of pain, especially when we get zombie Jason eventually. So, yeah, final chapter. It is a slasher classic. This is the one that actually saved the franchise. People thought this would be the end, but it made a lot of money, and fans absolutely love it. I still think Part 2 is better. I'm sorry, it is just my fan bias. Part 2 I find way scarier. The final chapter is scary too, but I find it a lot more cooler. It is the one with Jason at his top game. Ted White is an underrated Jason. I know we all love Kane Hodder, but Ted White really brought a lot of menace and threat to Jason, which lasted forever. So yeah, final chapter is a slasher classic still. Gonna use the restroom before we have a lot to say on Part 5, The New Beginning. Here's Roy. Yep, we are at the fifth one. One of the most infamously divisive movies in this because it's the Jason movie without Jason. Here we meet a copycat killer who is posing as Jason, going on a killing spree for their own secret agenda. This is the one with the infamous Roy Burns killer. Let's see. They made Lucy Hartfilia become a snake woman with a snake tail. Remind me of Princess Jasmine and Eye of the Beholder in the Aladdin, the animated series. Yeah, good show. Hard to say who would win. I do think they both have one leg up over the other, and that Crowley is more of a ferocious animal, but I think Jason is more of a proficient fighter. Agreed. Yeah, Disney was using Eye of the Beholder in the Aladdin the Animated Series and Gargoyles. Well, it's not really a trademark title. It was kind of a phrase and saying, even before Rod Serling took it for his own title. It's like, yeah, they don't own that. It's a kind of an old saying. So, in part 5, this is where Tommy Jarvis becomes the central protagonist. We get the Tommy Jarvis trilogy, which is very great. We're following Tommy as Jason has kind of ruined his life. Tommy is now in the mental asylum after all the trauma he endured in the final chapter, and Tommy is now a full-grown adult. We get a time skip. Tommy is now like in his 20s, and he's in basically a nut house with a bunch of other troubled youths. All these people and Tommy have a lot of like mental disorders, mental illness, and they're in this sort of halfway house living near the Crystal Lake to get some fresh air, help them clear their mind, and eventually readjust to society. New beginning, the red-haired stepchild of the franchise. Yeah, it definitely is. So, at this asylum, basically, one of the kids goes nuts and kills this annoying, retarded fat kid. Honestly, it's supposed to be scary, but I kind of laugh every time because he just snaps out of nowhere and chops this fat kid into pieces. The fat kid dies and the psycho kid is sent to jail, and we find out the fat kid was actually the child of Roy Burns, this random paranetic who's in the background for half the time, who was basically traumatized and grieving for the death of his son, and he becomes the new Jason slash Mrs. Voorhees. He becomes a copycat killer, taking up Jason's mantle to kill all the people and doctors of the mental asylum, blaming them for the death of his son. I agree, Jon Snow. Yeah, basically, Roy Burns is the killer, and everyone refers to him appropriately as Poser Jason. He wants to kill all the asylum attendees and all the doctors and basically get revenge and conquer the grief he has over his son, exactly like Mrs. Voorhees. And we do get clever clues that this isn't Jason because there's something off about him. For one, he has a different hockey mask. It has like blue stripes instead of the red. You can't fully see his face. He moves very awkwardly. He wears the Michael Myers jumpsuit. Thank you. He wears the Michael Myers jumpsuit, and his signature weapon in this are hedge clippers. Yeah, not a machete, hedge clippers. And everyone uses those in the game. The one thing people like about Roy is how he became better in the video game. But that's because you're playing as him. As a character, he really sucks. Isn't it crazy that Friday 3 and 4 all take place over the course of one weekend? Yeah, that is pretty hilarious. As I said, continuity is not the strong suit of this franchise. Like, technically, part 2 is Friday the 13th. The third movie should be a Saturday, or in the weekend. And then, final chapter is basically taking place right after part 3 did. I presume there was a time skip in between there, but they did not do a good job emphasizing that. What is this? The Scissor Man from Clock Tower. Also, Wendy from Fairy Tale became a Bikino, aka a sexy Catwoman. I think you're talking about Carla, aka Charl. She's like the little white cat who can turn into a cat girl. Alright, so basically, it's the same shtick. Jason's going around killing teenagers. However, there's a B plot where Tommy Jarvis is trying to conquer his mental illness. He's hallucinating Jason, still having nightmares about him, still seeing him killing people, and he's trying to face those. Tommy is kind of mute for at least half the movie, but he's eventually bonding with the asylum crew. Shame that J-Boy didn't make it to 13 movies. Well, not really, but you know what I mean. I mean, if you want to count the Never Hike Alone saga, which I know a lot of people do, but officially, no, he's still behind. He might make it to 13 entries, though, if that prequel series does come out. I do like Tommy. I think Shepard actually does a pretty decent job as Tommy Jarvis. He plays this unhinged trauma victim very well. Tommy Jarvis has some anger fits and some psychotic moments where he attacks mental asylum patients who piss him off, attacks this random hillbilly bully guy. Pretty fun stuff. Roy Burns does almost get some cool kills. There are like 2 kills I at least remember. However, this is the one where the MPAA censored a lot of the gore. Yeah, Friday the 13th, unfortunately, had some movies that were mercilessly slaughtered by censorship, and Part 5 is one of them. Half the kills and blood are very quick, fast-paced, or obscured. They're cut down, they're downgraded. Roy Burns gives a lot of brutal kills to some, but yeah, not as cool or memorable. Well, it is in Fairy Tale 100-Year Quest. Wait for the English dub. I am waiting for that. Remember, I'm in school, so I can hardly hear you, but I don't want to get my phone taken away. Okay, so Part 5 might upset a lot of people, but I will put it on Beta Shelly. I do not consider it the worst entry. There are actually a lot of good moments in this. For one, a lot of the best nudity is in this. The director was a porn director, and this was his first start in the mainstream filmmaking, and he really got some good nudity shots. Debbie Voorhees is very pretty. There's another pretty girl who takes her shirt off. A lot of very sexy women in this one, and the nudity is definitely a huge point in its favor. And Roy Burns does have some savage kills. 2 of my favorites is one, when this hitchhiker is lost in the woods. He's trying to fix the car. Roy uses a flare and shoves it in his mouth, and it gives him this really gruesome death where he's both being burned and choked by the flare in his mouth, and it is killing him. Really visceral scene. Christina V is Deborah Kim in the Friday the 13th game. Yeah, that is great. Love Deborah Kim. She is another character based on someone from a later movie. And Christina V's great in almost everything. About as censored as what they did to the Tremors movies. I'm looking at you, Val, when you say your mother humpers instead of mother effers. Those Tremors movies. And, oh yeah, one where there's a couple having sex in the woods, and Roy gives them, a very brutal death. He kills the girl who's, sun-tanning topless, and he impales her through the face with his hedge clippers, right through the eyes. We don't get to see it, but it sounds and looks very gruesome. Then when the guy comes back, he, gets scared finding his hot chick dead, and Roy backs him into a tree, ties a belt around his head and the tree, and uses a stick to basically motion and tighten it until his skull literally bursts open. It is savage. Hey, gonna be lurking while I eat. We'll still have the stream on. Okay, thanks, Emily. Don't worry, we're on part 5. So, yeah, really, there's some creative kills in this, and the best nudity in this series, I would argue, but Part 5 does have some highlights, and then, at least in one of the coolest confrontations, where eventually Roy Burns picks them off one by one. We're led to think that Tommy could be the killer, because Part 4 teased that. Spoilers, he's not, and we get this big scene showing he's not, where basically they confront in the farm. All that's left are Tommy, this little black kid, and one of the nurses. I believe her name was Pam. She's the final girl. They're final three, and Roy's trying to finish everyone in this film. They have a fight in the barn. Tommy finally conquers his fears. There's some savage kills, creepy suspense, and he eventually beats Roy by cutting off his arm and sending him flying off of the farm, where he falls onto a tractor equipment, which impales him Mortal Kombat style. Like Tom Matthews played Tommy Jarvis. Yeah, he was great. Also, why Jason hated lovebirds. Like, does he know true love? Jason hates teenagers having sex because teenagers having sex caused his death. They were too busy making love instead of watching him, which led to him drowning. And this is kind of the big reason why he always kills the couple making love. It's a trigger for him. So yeah, Roy Burns dies a Mortal Kombat death, being fallen in the pit, which he is impaled on, and we see him unmasked where it was Roy all along, and the audience is questioning, who? Oh, it was the background paramedic this whole time. He pops up in the background a few times. He does have a few lines to throw you off in the red herring tricks, which do not work. What do you think about doing a tier list of the Tremors franchise? And yes, even including the short-lived TV series in 2003. I have seen Tremors 1 and 2. I have not seen the rest outside of Decker Shadow's reviews. Decker Shadow, the internet reviewer with the best hair, he talked about the entire movie saga. I'm not sure where to find the TV show is the problem. That one is harder to find. I can very easily, rent and locate the movies, but the TV show might be a bit hard to find, which is why I haven't ranked it yet. I know a lot of people love Tremors. I love the first two, but I heard the sequels have their love them or hate it fans. And then, we find out Roy Burns was killing people because he wanted to avenge the death of his son, and he blamed the asylum for failing him, which is almost a good motive, but there's just one problem. Why the hell was Roy Burns murdering a dozen people completely disconnected with the asylum? This is the one thing that really murders this movie, and I agree. Roy Burns kills several hundred people who aren't even linked to his son's death or the nut house. He kills random hitchhikers, this random couple, the families of one of the characters who don't even live in Crystal Lake. He kills, the hillbilly couple who, the mother and son who basically lived far away and wanted the asylum shut down. He kills this random farmhand who didn't even know any of the characters. His whole thing doesn't make any sense. The movie isn't bad just because it doesn't have Jason. It's bad because their twist villain is poorly written and doesn't make any sense. Not related, but recently I found out that the outfit that the Nutcrackers wear is not a soldier's outfit, it's a mining outfit. Had to be out for a bit, what did I miss? Oh, we're on part 5, talking about the terrible Roy Burns twist, Shadowlink. Roy Burns sucks, because he's poorly written, and his plan made no sense. The asylum failed my son, so I'm going to kill all these people who aren't even linked to the asylum before I actually kill them first. And then, making even less sense is that the final survivors all actually liked his son, and he's still going to kill them anyway. He's killing the black kid who doesn't even work here. He's killing the nurse who actually cared for Joey, and he's killing Tommy, who is a new recruit just showing up. Oh, geez, part 5. I definitely agree that he sucks as a twist villain. Yeah, Roy Burns is known as Poser Jason among the Fridays fans. He is a poser, Jason, and his whole MO did not make any sense, and not helping matters was half his kills got censored by the MPAA, so he doesn't even get to look cool. Unfortunately, he was salvaged by the video game, where you got all the cool hedge clipper kills, but I could do that by just switching Jason's weapon with one of the real Jasons. And then, making matters worse, after everything's resolved, everyone's in the hospital happy, we find out Tommy Jarvis becomes the new killer. He wears Jason's mask, or Roy's mask, and we're led to believe like the spirit of Jason is influencing him, and he's about to kill Pam, until we find out no, that didn't happen, and we pull a Halloween 5. Roy Burns, played by Dan Castellaneta, is the actor in Genie, Aladdin, the animated series, Grandpa Phil, Short Man, and Hey Arnold, the movie, and Dr. Emmett Brown in Back to the Future, the animated series. Oh, didn't know he was Doc Brown. So, part 5 I'm putting on Beta Shelly, because I do think it does have some good moments, best nudity in this series, and some very creative kills. There is definitely a cool idea in the murder mystery aspect, and I did actually warm up to the copycat Jason idea. The problem is, it does not do it well, and that's what cost it at points. It is the redheaded stepchild of the Friday saga. Also, Homer Simpson. Yeah, we all knew that. That's his biggest character. Yeah, part 5, I actually will defend as having good moments, which is why it doesn't hit rock bottom dead fuck for us. But it is far from flawless, but I will watch it more than part 3D. So with that, we're on the fan favorite, part 6, Jason Lives. Yeah, but he's back. He's the man behind the mask. And he's out of control. I'll be back. Okay, Jon Snow. Just when we're on the best part. Part 6, the grand finale to the Tommy Jarvis arc. And the introduction of Zombie Jason. This is the one where Jason finally comes back because the studio listened to all the fan complaints and realized that, oh, Jason is this saga, so we might as well revive him. So, if you don't know, Jason is long dead and buried, and he has his own grave. I'm not sure who paid for it, because he was a monster, but whatever. Tommy Jarvis has had these psychic dreams where he still thinks Jason's alive, and he basically goes to finally conquer his trauma once and for all by visiting Jason's grave and ensuring that the guy is dead for good. Tommy Jarvis and one of his friends from the asylum go to Jason Voorhees' grave, dig him up, see if he's truly dead. We see a very gross, slimy, disgusting Jason. He's pretty much been decaying as a corpse. Also, Captain Howdy in DC's Legion of Superheroes. Oh, good for him. And Tommy tries to finish him. He lets all his rage out. However, he made a mistake because he impales him with like a metal gate pole. It stabs right through Jason. And then a lightning storm comes out of nowhere where it strikes Jason's impaled spear and brings him back from the dead Frankenstein style. And we officially get Zombie Jason. Jason rises from his grave and goes on a killing spree once more. And this one solidified him and Tommy as archenemies. Tommy runs around Crystal Lake, the city, and trying to warn people that Jason's back, you gotta help me stop him, but everyone thinks he's crazy, and the douche sheriff basically locks him up, thinking he's a psychotic criminal. So we do get a A plot and a B plot. The A plot of Jason coming back and going on a rampage. He's going back to his home, Camp Crystal Lake. However, the camp has a new summer camp, Camp Evergreen Forest, I believe, which was built over, and the town is finally moving on and forgetting that evil J-Man. Meanwhile, Tommy's in jail and he's trying to convince the sheriff to help release him. There's actually a cute romance with the sheriff's daughter who falls in love with Tommy, finding him cute and slowly becoming friends with him, falling for him, getting into sexy teen adventures, and Tommy finally getting a girlfriend. Part 6 is my favorite of the series. Great opening, very good kills, nice zombie Jason design, and Tommy Jarvis and the female main lead Megan are great. Yeah, Tommy and Megan are definitely lovable protagonists, really cool heroes. Basically, for most of the plot, Jason is working his way back to Crystal Lake. He's walking all the way from the graveyard back to his old summer camp and killing a lot of people along the way. While a bit of a generic formula of Jason killing people, the kills are super creative and very fun. This is popcorn entertainment at its highest. This is a fun Friday the 13th movie. It is so cool, so campy, but it loves its slasher roots. It loves having fun. It really loves its Jason, and it really cares about entertaining the audience. And Tom Matthews pretty much became the definitive Tommy Jarvis actor. Yes, even better than Corey Feldman, because this is a more experienced Tommy. He is now basically both the Laurie Strode and Dr. Loomis for Jason. He is now Jason's total arch nemesis, who knows how to kill him, who knows how dangerous he is, and is pretty much spending his time hunting Jason down and fixing his mistake of reviving him. And I think we can all agree that Part 6 is truly a slasher classic. I will put it above Part 2. This is the top tier Jason movie. And it definitely solidified that with like a lot of the kills and the fun and definitely the final act. Jason's kills are very brutal. He has a triple beheading of these 3 paintball hunters out in the woods. He throws one guy, impales him on a tree branch, and it makes a smiley face where his blood is. Megan is played by Jennifer Cooke, who played Eleanor Shepard in The Hitchhiker. Oh, not The Hitcher? Oh, okay. Good to know. Megan's very cute. She's pretty much a lovable final girl. She's kind of the wild child, and she has this huge crush on Tommy, doing anything, even going against her father, the sheriff, just to be with him. This one actually had a lot more colorful characters and probably the strongest acting in the series, because everyone is definitely a fun over the top, or at least treating it seriously. Most of the Friday films get ridiculed for their bad acting, but then when you see Tom Matthews and Megan, they're definitely very fun and deep characters. Hi, Kat, am I late? No, cool show, you're kind of halfway through. We're at Part 6, Jason Lives. One of my favorite scenes is the RV. I really love the RV couple are out there. Jason sabotages their power and cuts their line, and for a while there's actually build up if Jason is gonna jump them. They have these creepy shots of the forest. They're thinking that Jason might be real after all, and they get their RV fixed and drive away, and you think, oh, they made it safe, but nope, surprise, Jason was in the bathroom where he jumps the girlfriend and impales her through the wall. It's a very goofy scene, but a really hardcore kill. Then we get the coolest scene where he kills the guy driving the RV, and the RV completely flips and goes sideways. It has an epic car crash, but Jason breaks out through the door and walks on top of the flaming vehicle, completely unscathed. I have all Friday the 13th films on DVD. Really? Okay. I have most of them. The only ones I don't have are Part 3D, the final chapter, and Jason Goes to Hell, because that one sucks. So eventually, as we know, Jason picks them off one by one. He eventually makes it to Camp Crystal Lake, and this time there's a lot more suspense because the camp has actually reopened, and there are now children attending it, meaning Jason's gonna murder some minors. And there's a lot of creepy scenes. Jason picks off the counselors first. There's these creepy shots of him spying through the windows, the wind blowing, a lot of suspense. Jason is more like a ghost in this version, disappearing. He gets his teleport. And he kills all the counselors. The kids are almost next until Tommy and Megan show up to save the day. And Jason even murders the cops really gruesomely. I love the ninja star kill. He hits one in the head with a throwing knife and he falls in the boat. He horribly murders the sheriff by breaking him in half. The sheriff dies trying to protect Megan, giving him a bit of a redemption arc. Off topic, I bought an ice cream maker from Goodwill. Oh, good. Ice cream. We all scream for ice cream. So basically, Tommy lures Jason out into the lake to finally face him once and for all. Big epic fight scene. Jason gets horribly cut by a propeller blade from Megan from the boat. And Tommy successfully chains Jason and ties him to like a rock and drowns him in the lake. He can't kill him, but he can stop him. Where Jason is strangled by a chain noose that drags him down under the water with the rock submerging him. And Jason is finally trapped and reburied in Crystal Lake, completely defanged and powerless. Tommy almost dies, but Megan gives him that mouth to mouth in that sexy way, and she revives him, where Tommy at last gains his happy ending and closure that Jason is gone. I definitely like the fitting climax here, putting Jason back where he belongs, so to speak, under the lake. Yeah, that was definitely good. What do you think of Friday the 13th, the video game? I really love it. I really like it. The game is definitely fun. Unfortunately, some players are dicks. And tragically, the servers for the video game are going to go offline next year. So if you play Friday the 13th, the game, better start playing now and hunting those achievements, because it is going to go offline starting next year. What do you think of Friday the 13th? I read that. Sheriff Mike Garris, also played by David Kagan, who played Major Clev in Star Trek, Fred Thomas, and Freddy's Nightmares. Oh, so he met Freddy and Jason. MTB rep in a CSI episode, The Room Service. Like, Crystal Lake should have been shut down then reopening for a kid's summer camp. Well, you know, Akira, they actually thought Jason was dead because he was actually buried and had a grave this time. So the town keeps jumping to conclusions and assuming he's gone. So yeah, happy ending, and I think part 6 is a slasher classic. Everyone really loves this one, and I do too. A very fitting conclusion for Jason and Tommy Jarvis's rivalry, unless you play the video game or watch the Never Hike Alone series, which expanded upon that, basically. Tom Matthews is great, cool kills, and this gave us that epic Alice Cooper song, He's Back. Yeah, Jason finally got a cool theme song in this movie, instead of his usual soundtrack, or whatever the heck that funky disco theme was in 3D. But yeah, part 6, slasher classic. Alright, I'm gonna use the restroom, but next time we're coming back with Friday the 13th, The New Blood, aka Jason versus Carrie. I know some people got opinions on that one. Hang on, I'll be back. Here's Hodder. Yep, this is the one where Kane Hodder finally puts on the mask and becomes the iconic Jason. And oddly, it's one of the weirdest movies in the franchise. This is pretty much Jason versus Carrie White, because Jason now stalks and fights a telekinetic girl who is pretty much Carrie White in all but name. And they have a fight in a Jason setting. I preferred they made a Jason shrine to keep no one enters his domain. And now part 7, The New Blood. A mixed bag in my eyes. Interesting new gimmick with the psychic girl, but a bit of a mad journey to get to the good stuff, especially the epic climax. So yeah, originally this movie was supposed to be Jason versus Carrie, but Stephen King said hell no and didn't want his character associated with it. So they invented a new character who's pretty much just Carrie White in all but name. So the girl's name is actually Tina. She's a psychic girl with Carrie's powers, and basically she suffered this horrible trauma. She had an abusive father who she accidentally killed with her psychic powers and drowned him in the Crystal Lake by causing a dock to fall on him, and he died, where she got taken to the mental institution. However, this corrupt evil doctor takes her under his wing to raise her and harness her powers so he can profit off of them. She's like kind of this superhero government child being raised in a lab, and the doctor basically takes her to where her trauma happened to help her unlock and control her powers, and surprise, that turns out to be Crystal Lake. The new 28 Years Later trailer dropped. What do you think of it, Kat? I don't know, Christopher. I've never even watched 28 Days Later. The 28 Days saga, my brother Wolf actually watched that. He's more of a fan of it. I'm not very sure if I even want to watch it, though. It's like one of those franchises I just haven't gotten into yet. So, back to the story. She gets taken back to Crystal Lake to harness her powers, and while practicing her powers and skills, she accidentally unlocks Jason from the prison Tommy left him in, where Jason escapes, now a more bloated, decayed, ugly-looking zombie with more battle damage on him. And we officially get Kane Hodder as Jason. Oh god, the doctor sucks. So glad he got his comeuppance. Yeah, me too. Basically, Jason rises and they kind of pad the movie out, building up to him fighting Carrie, where a group of teenagers is also here, moving next door, who are having a birthday party for a friend in Crystal Lake, and they invite Tina, where she gets like a love interest. And basically, if you haven't figured it out, Jason goes after these teenagers first, picking them off all one by one. It is a typical Friday the 13th movie, up until the final act. Once again, the MPAA kind of censored this movie horribly, like the Roy Burns saga. Like, we get some very cool ideas for kills, but they don't show you everything, or it's toned down heavily. A lot of Jason stabbing people with stuff, either random objects or his machete, which I guess he was buried with under that lake. Lar Park Lincoln played Tina Shepard, also played Roseblood, a Friday the 13th fan film as Tina Shepard. Oh, cool, glad she came back. Karen on Freddy's Nightmares, another star who met Freddy. It's a Miserable Life, and Sidney Scott in Sky Sharks. Never heard of that one. Yeah, basically, it's kind of the same crap for a while. Jason killing sexy teenagers. One of them is actually Jeff Bennett, the voice actor. He plays the weirdo nerd who's simping for the bitch popular girl. Yeah, it is so funny seeing Jeff Bennett get his start in a Jason sequel, but pretty fun. I will say the acting is a bit more mixed. We got some decent actors and some very wooden ones who are just there to be hot or be kills on Jason's machete. So Jason's like randomly killing, and the A-plot is much more interesting with Carrie White. They slowly put together that this doctor guy is a complete douchebag who's using her and trying to exploit Tina's powers, use them for profit, and wants to kind of sell her at a high price to the government to use as, like, I guess a supervillain soldier, I suppose. And the doctor does get his comeuppance. It is like the most satisfying scene. The doctor is a total dickhead. He even sacrifices Tina's mother to save himself when Jason is chasing them. He like tries to treat Carrie as his patient and gaslight her, but then he realizes, oh crap, there really is a psycho killer on the loose here. And he and the mom go looking for Carrie White out in the woods. He sacrifices the mom. The mom is played by Susan Blue, who my Transformers fans would recognize as RC from the classic Transformers. Very cool seeing all these voice actors in as Jason kills. He sacrifices the completely innocent mom and saves himself, but Jason tracks him down where we get the satisfying kill. He kills him with a weed whacker up his groin. And yeah, the doctor dies a very satisfying death. It was pretty much worth it putting up with that dickhead only for him to get Jason's full wrath. Yeah, Jason went extra evil on him. Yep, Johnny Bravo is in this. Yeah, Jeff Bennett. He is cool. I wish Jeff Bennett also got a cool kill, but no, he gets another stab off screen. So, Tina eventually loses everyone she loves except for her love interest, who is pretty much a discount Paul from part 2. He's like the Fred of the group, the nice guy jock. They fall in love Carrie White style, and he helps her. He actually listens to her. She saves him, and Jason finally enters the picture. He kills the mean girl alpha bitch in the most hilarious way. Like, she opens the door, and he's, of course, just standing there and axes her head and chucks her at the TV. It is pretty funny. A lot more funny kills in this version. Not scary, but a lot more dark comedy, Jason. So, Jeff Bennett, the voice of the Man of the Yellow Hat and Brave and the Bold Joker actor, plays Eddie. Yeah, that's him. That's him. Eddie dies, like, halfway through. And this is where we get, like, the actual movie. Jason versus Carrie, as Tina, finally pissed off and having enough of Jason, uses her psychic powers to bludgeon him and beat Jason up. There's a lot of cool tricks, a lot of, like, Jean Grey psychic powers she uses. She throws stuff at him, hurls him across the room, and breaks Jason's mask off. I will say, this has the coolest unmasked Jason look in the series. He is like a full-blown zombie/demon now. His face now has like red eyes. He's got like these disfigured teeth. His skin is completely gray. Part 7 is so nostalgic for me. I love this movie. It better be top tier. Jason Unmasked once again looks awesome. Yeah, the makeup is so great. I will say what you will about the plot of this movie, but Part 7 definitely had high production. There was a lot more. Kane Hodder gets set on fire, and yeah, he literally did set himself on fire. He wore like a protection suit and filmed like for a whole minute set ablaze because the suit protected him that long. Yeah, Jason gets unmasked and he's like this snarling, angry, zombie demon-looking thing. They fight and eventually, like, she collapses the entire house on him, but that still doesn't kill him. He jumps him at the dock, and unfortunately we get to one of the negatives I have of this movie where, out of nowhere, Carrie uses her psychic powers to resurrect her abusive dad, who's suddenly a good guy now, and he reties Jason up with his chains and drags them both down into the Crystal Lake, trapping them once again. It is very odd and very confusing because they play up the dad like he's supposed to be an abuser, but he apparently got a redemption arc where he comes back as like a guardian angel saving his daughter and trapping Jason again. Like, it makes no sense and is so random and not very well put together. Yeah, the way Jason is defeated was a bit weak and WTF out of nowhere. I agree, Shadow Link. That is one of the things I hate about this movie because it is so random. Like, more random than Dinobot 2's redemption. It like came completely out of nowhere. But yeah, they drown Jason and trap him in the same trap Tommy had him in. And I guess Tina and the boyfriend get together and now have each other where they actually get a happy ending. No twist of Jason rising up or whatever. What do you think of doing a Carrie tier list? Aren't there only like 4 Carrie movies? There's the original Sissy Spacek one, there's the TV one, there's Carrie 2, The Rage, and then there's the one starring Chloe, I can't remember, Chloe Grace Moritz or something. Yeah, Chloe, the remake. The remake sucked. I don't think I can do a tier list for just 4 films. Maybe a ranking, but I'd have to stomach the other two lower budget movies. So, part 7, I might put on Awesome Mask. You know, I will put it above the first movie because I do rewatch this one more often than the first one. It gets so insane, and the final act is definitely the best part. Kane Hodder as Jason is really cool. How could you forget the sleeping bag kill, which made horror history? I actually do kind of respect this one and like it. It is not a slasher classic to me because I agree with the fans. There are a lot of flaws, and it gets really weird. This is where the Friday movies got weird. Fair enough. Oh, thank you, Shadowlink. Yeah, there's 4 scary movies. The TV one is the best one. Oh, so I heard. I heard some people actually defend Carrie 2, The Rage, but there's also an equal fan base who hates it. Not sure I'll do a Carrie ranking. I might think about it, but definitely not coming today. As I said, part 7 I think is an awesome mask. It does have rewatch value, which is why it does rank higher than the first one, and I do think it gets crazy. Kane Hodder as Jason is so awesome. He has some very cool kills, and he pretty much cemented Jason's status as a cool killer. Kane Hodder played the human pizza in House 4, Pleasure Island inhabitant in Geppetto 2000, Fallone's bodyguard in Daredevil movie, and Victor Crowley in Hatchet. You should have started with that one. And we'll definitely watch part 7 more than Psy, the next one, part 8. Oh, also, Kat, I should be finished with Transformers Animated by the end of the day. A bit off topic, but wanted to let you know. Transformers Animated is awesome. I'm glad you're rewatching it, Emily, because that is a high show for me. My second favorite Transformers after Prime, of course. Third if we're counting the Cybertron video games, but we all know those are S-rank legends. But yeah, as I said, part 7 is an awesome mask. It is decent, but still a bit flawed. I do recommend it. I would watch it still if you're doing a Friday marathon. It is just dumb fun. Unfortunately, the same can't be said about the next one, Friday the 13th, Part 8. Jason Takes a Boat. I mean, Manhattan. This is the one where Jason goes to New York in the last 15 minutes, while the first 90 minutes are a whole boat ride. Hang on, need some water. Okay, so is anyone going to be surprised? Part 8 is one of the worst Jason movies, and it is going straight to dead fuck. Part 8 is terrible. Completely misinformation. It faked you out. A total bait and switch. Another generic entry. Jason honestly looks his worst in the movie. Totally low budget. Totally cheap. Has some of the weirdest kills in the franchise, and has some of the most forgettable characters, and completely pissed away the cool concept. Jason Takes Manhattan is kind of trash, but there's a really sweet story about the filmmaking I heard a while back. Yeah, the story about the making of this movie is more better than the movie itself. Basically, we follow a group of teenagers who are graduating, and for their graduation party, they're going to Manhattan, New York. Doing so, they're all teenagers from Crystal Lake, and they're taking a cruise ship there, where Jason inadvertently, breaks out of his ball and chain again, and he hops the cruise and follows these teenagers all the way to New York. However, we get to the problem. 90% of this movie is on a friggin' boat. Yeah, 90% of this movie is on a friggin' boat. It is a slow burn story, and New York shows up in the last 20 minutes, and most of the shots weren't even in New York. They were in Vancouver. Jason takes a slow boat ride and only visits Manhattan for 15 minutes and doesn't barely take place in Manhattan at all, is what the title should have been. I highly agree, Emily. Vincent Craig Dupree as Julius Gaw played Gene in American Drive-In, Edgar and Eastwick, and Faster Brown in Martial Law. Okay, so Kane Hodder is finally the face of Jason, which is the only highlight I get in this movie, because Kane Hodder definitely had fun. Everyone else is pretty generic. We have a lot more unlikable characters. We bring back the bitch popular girls, the pervy jocks, the pervy nerd. The final girl is the most boring in this entire saga. She has a trauma story where she almost drowned in Crystal Lake and saw Jason's ghost or something, and she's trying to conquer that fear. We have the douchebag, most unorthodox principal who's had enough of these kids partying, and yeah, very, very generic. It doesn't help that it's just doing the same crap, but on a boat. Jason's on a cruise, stowed away, killing the crew and killing the teenagers one by one in, honestly, much goofier ways. I read somewhere Kane Hodder said him was so grateful Jason had a mask because he was in tears when hundreds of people behind the filming barricades at the Central Park scene were cheering Jason on. Yeah, Kane Hodder definitely became an icon, and I think part 7 more for that because he was so cool in that movie, whereas in this, Jason is kind of nerfed. So yeah, basically it's the same shit. Jason's just killing random teenagers, and you don't really care. This is the first one that has the most basic bitch cast since part 1. They all have like one-note archetypes. Jason kills the punk rocker girl by smacking her in the head with a guitar. He kills the cameraman by stabbing him through his camera while he's filming and throws him on the electric box. He chucks a guy off the boat roof and impales him on one of the flagpoles or something. Between Chupacabra Dark Seas versus this film, which is more tolerable? I've never seen Chupacabra Dark Seas, but I'll go with whichever one's shorter. I will say that some of the kills are kind of fun, though, especially the one where the boxer tries to fight Jason on the rooftop, then he just one-shots the guy's head off. Yeah, that was pretty much the one good kill in this. That was cool and a bit hilarious. Yeah, if you don't know, this is the one that has the famous scene where Jason fights the black boxer jock, and they're on the rooftop, he's punching Jason, he has zero effect, and Jason one-shots, knocks his head off, and it falls in the trash, and that is pretty much the only memorable kill in this entire movie. I do like that the principal's death too, where Jason jumps in Manhattan and he drowns him in like a shit container. He like puts him in like this slime and poop bucket and drowns him in there. Like, that was definitely satisfying. The problem is we wait so long to get to it. Like, Manhattan takes a long time to get to. It is a slow burn story. This is the longest Friday the 13th movie, and you can tell the pacing is horrible in this. Also, Kelly Hu, the actress of Eva Watanabe, played Stacey Hirano in Phineas and Ferb, Miss Muerto in Scooby-Doo and the Samurai Sword, Miss Lee in Batman Under the Red Hood. How could you forget Karai from TMNT? And Cheshire from Young Justice. She was cool as that. Yeah, voice actress Kelly Hu actually appears in this movie, and just when you think we're gonna get Jason versus Lady Deathstrike, he kills her very anticlimactically, jumping her in the dance hall. He pretty much just snaps her neck. Very lame kill. Hey, Wolf. Yeah, he kills a very lame kill, so we waste so much time on this dang boat. It gets so boring. Then they finally make it to Manhattan, where there's some short chase scenes, and they're mostly running through dark alleys. They did shoot a few scenes in New York. We get a shot of Jason in Times Square. Jason's on the subway chasing them, and I have no clue why Jason isn't murdering everyone in sight. He's like surrounded by people so many times in this. Like, it is very weird. Like, Jason walks past a bunch of people on the subway just to kill the main characters. Just like Killer Clowns from Outer Space with that guy getting his block knocked off. Yeah, that one was good. I do think it is better than this Jason's kill. Also, Ashra and MK Legends cage match. Cuckoo and Afro Samurai and Karai and TMNT. Yep, I beat you to that one. So basically, like, Jason's just walking around New York and not killing a ton of people. Jason was supposed to fight in the Statue of Liberty, but they couldn't afford shooting there. So he chases them through the subway, and eventually they end up in a sewer, because that's what you wanted to see, Jason fighting in a sewer, where he's chasing the final girl and her boyfriend, and we get the worst Jason face, where he gets his mask destroyed, and he looks like this weird muck monster, kind of like the Goosebumps mud monster. And the ending to this is even more bizarre than 7. Getting hit by a stream of acid, and he turns into a little normal boy afterwards. What? Also, Dr. Anna Yoon in NCIS and Pearl Zoo. Yeah, the ending's weird. Jason gets beaten when mutagen comes in and floods the sewers. I guess the Ninja Turtles were having a fight somewhere. Like, this mutagen comes flooding the sewers, the main girl and her boyfriend barely escape, Jason gets splashed and defeated by it, where he mutates back into his little boy form. Oh, but not before Kane Hodder gets to say, "Mommy?" It's really bizarre and confusing voice. Like, yeah, Kane Hodder says, "Mommy?" And then he gets splashed before he turns into a normal boy. I guess toxic waste mutated out the Deadite form he had and turns him back into a regular little boy, which makes no sense, is so confusing, and not even addressed in the next film. Then it just ends with them going in Manhattan and, I guess, exploring, living happily ever after with no way to get back home because their class is dead. Bad movie. Bad movie. It is a dead fuck for sure, and one of the worst entries in the series. Oh, but not as worse as our next entry. Hang on, I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. Welcome to hell, Wolfpack, because we're at Friday the 13th, Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. Another attempt at the final chapter, but as you can see, not really. This is the one where Jason finally dies, except his evil spirit is passed on to new hosts who he possesses as he tries to get a body back and relive as a killer once more. And, oh boy, I think this is one of the worst movies in the franchise. Jason Goes to Hell is a rock bottom dead fuck for me. This one is bad. It is so insane, ludicrous, confusing, has a really god-awful story, and I think this is one of Jason's worst entries. It is so ridiculous, and not to mention very hard to watch at times. So, this one opens up with Jason getting murdered. Yeah, apparently the FBI made this sting operation in Crystal Lake, where one of the agents poses as a sexy girl at the camp, where Jason tries to stalk and kill her, only surprise, the FBI ambush them and shoot him up Red Dead Redemption style, where Jason's blown to smithereens and he finally dies. But not really. So, the FBI kills Jason, and they're taking what's left of his remains to destroy and burn. However, Jason becomes like a demon and possesses some people into eating his heart, where he relives in their bodies. And Jason's basically trying to work his way back to Crystal Lake and gain himself a normal body to carry on his killing spree once more. Also, bye, Cat. See ya, Kira. Don't miss the tears you've already seen. Ah, yes, Jason Goes to Hell, coming out the same year I was born. Really, that's sad. Yeah, Jason Goes to Hell sucks. It is so dumb and so outlandish, so confusing. Jason eventually needs the perfect host, and here we get this BS plot point where, oh, Jason had a sister this whole time. Yeah, Jason had a sister. Mrs. Voorhees had a second child who I guess she abandoned when she was avenging her son. And Jason wants to possess his sister to relive as a Voorhees once more. And we meet this knockoff Tommy Jarvis. Apparently, Tommy Jarvis was supposed to be the final guy in this, but we meet this dweeby, nerdy, jock-looking guy who takes over as the real hero, trying to crack the mystery and stop Jason. And some people defend. We also meet fan favorite Dwayne Duke, the cowboy guy, this black cowboy bounty hunter who knows everything about Jason, and he talks about the lore for anyone who's new to this franchise. Between Jason Goes to Hell or Jeepers Creepers 3, which would you think is tolerable to watch? Maybe Jeepers Creepers 3, because I can at least laugh at it. Jeepers Creepers 3 is so incompetent and terrible, it is at least funny. This is just painful bad. I will say there's a lot of gory kills, but almost too disgusting for me to watch. There's a lot of bones cracking, a lot of brutal savagery, and unfortunately they're kind of ruined because it's by a Jason-possessed victim, where somehow they gain Jason's super strength. Like, it makes no sense at all. And even goofier is every time we see the Jason-possessed victim walking by, like a mirror or something, you see Jason in the reflection instead of them. Which could have been creative, but this movie is just so terrible. Like, it's also pretty boring, too, because Jason is not Jason for most of this movie. It's a bunch of random people being possessed by him acting as Jason, whereas Kane Hodder has, like, only 20 minutes in this film. This is by far the worst Friday the 13th movie. It absolutely ruins the lore with Jason in the dumbest way. Yeah, don't worry, Shadowlink, it made dead fuck. It is the rock bottom movie. I think this is the worst entry in the franchise. It was so bad it nearly killed the franchise. Yeah, Jason's like body jumping. He's possessing people now and doing weird things. There's this very weird scene where Jason abducts a guy, and the filmmaker wanted to like make this apology to female fans by having a male nudity scene, and Jason apparently strips this guy naked and is shaving his pubic hair. It's like, what? What the heck are we watching? Like, Jason's like shaving like his pubes or something, and he's chained down to a table, and then randomly Jason decides to just kill him by slitting his throat, making you question why he did that before. I guess having a guy in a shower scene was just too out there. And yeah, it absolutely destroys Jason's lore. Dwayne Duke basically sums up Jason's retcon character in this. Jason needs to, like, possess his sister or something, and he turns into, like, this slug monster at one point. Like, after they get him out of a possessed victim, he turns into, like, a slug, and he hops down, like, their throats. Oh, by the way, fan favorite Dwayne Duke also dies anticlimactically in this. He's like killed and thrown out the window, and he just dies bleeding out. I think they were like leaving the door open if they wanted to bring him back, but I hate this guy. I don't want him to come back. He like snaps people's fingers for asking him questions. So basically, not Tommy Jarvis and the final girl save the day. Jason gets his body back, but they get him sent back to hell, where he's like dragged down by like these zombies yanking him in the ground, and he's completely destroyed physically. Like, this shining light comes down, and I guess God and Satan both double team him and kill him by dragging him down. We also get the Necronomicon cameo in this, hinting that Jason's a Deadite, which is supposed to explain this stupid possession plot point. But a lot of fans hated it, and rightfully so. So that's it. They beat Jason, they get him sent back to hell while having literal demons pull him down. Oh, and let's not forget a sacred item used to defeat Jason now. Yeah, a sacred item, because that's what they did to Deadites. It's so dumb, so much dumb. I can't even remember it all because it was so out there. Jason's dragged to hell thanks to this sacred item. Not Tommy Jarvis and Jason's sister live happily ever after. But then we get our twist ending. We see Jason's discarded hockey mask where Freddy Krueger comes out and takes the mask, implying a sequel where they're gonna cross over Elm Street and Crystal Lake. And that is the only highlight in this entire movie, a Freddy cameo. But it's kind of ruined that they did not get Robert Englund, they instead got Kane Hodder wearing the Freddy glove. And yeah, it sucks. It sucks. This movie sucks. The only good thing about it is that it led to an epic crossover later. So, let's get back to good with Jason X. But 10 years later, we got Freddy vs. Jason coming back in 2003 when I was 9 or 10 years old. Yeah, only 10 years. Jason Goes to Hell was that bad that it killed the franchise. But then we get Jason X. This movie you either absolutely love or totally despise, considering it the worst ever. But luckily, I love it. Jason in Space is actually a slasher classic. I am putting it high up. I know. How could you put this movie up but not the first one? I love Jason X because it's just dumb fun. This is where they started doing really a lot more crazier things with Jason, and this is the one that really landed for me. Jason Goes to Space. So we do get an explanation for this. It is years later, chronologically after Freddy vs. Jason, where Kane Hodder's Jason is now locked up in solitary confinement. And I'm trying to remember. Cronenberg. Cronenberg plays the prison warden in a fun horror cameo. Cronenberg has him locked up in a super government facility where Jason is being studied. They decide that Jason is being transported to a government lab to officially study him and his undead abilities, but surprise, Jason stages a prison break where he breaks out and kills everyone except for Lexa Doig. Lexa is pretty hot in this. She plays the rare smart character in this horror saga. Lexa Doig is Chase, where she tricks Jason by trapping him in a cryogenic freezer, where she flash freezes him, but Jason manages to wing her, puncturing the cryogenic freezer, ending up freezing them both in the same lockdown room. Yeah, I'm not ashamed to admit, I love Jason X as well. Fun characters, epic kills, the liquid nitrogen one especially, and Uber Jason's design near the end is just badass. Yeah, this is a fun movie. We get to our real plot, where after they're flash frozen, they're discovered in the future by I believe a science class of teens going on a field trip. They're like digging up old Earth technology, where of course they stumble upon the cryo freezer and believe they can revive the two and sort of like profit off of them, become rich and famous, making a scientific breakthrough by resurrecting people from our current present day in the future. So Lexa Doig and Kane Hodder Jason are brought up, where they're both thawed out. Jason, of course, takes time to thaw because he was in deep cryo freeze, but of course, he wakes up and he kills the doctor through the epic nitrogen kill. He, drowns her in, this freezing chemical, which freezes up her face. Then she smashes the frozen ice, splattering her everywhere. Came out the same year as The Mummy Returns and Jurassic Park 3. Did it? I know The Mummy Returns was 2001. I think Jurassic Park 3 was 2003 or 2. And Jason basically goes on a killing spree in this futuristic Star Trek ship. This is what makes it fun. It is totally embracing the goofy, campy nature and having a ball with it. Jason is killing people like Doom style and like on a Star Trek set. They have like a holodeck, they have teleporters, they have like a lot of Star Wars technology and a lot of future tech. Everyone talks like a cliched scientist. It is so much fun. I really like it. I agree, she was pretty hot. Too bad I was only 7 or 8 years old at that time. Yeah, Alexa Doig was a pretty fun final girl. The problem is, I wish she got a little more, but what the heck, we're having Jason as the star in this movie. Tragically, this is the last one Kane Hodder played Jason in, unless you count the video game, of course, but I think his final actual movie was pretty fun. Like, the kills in this are so over the top, but very creative and fun. Jason throws a soldier, like, on a drill machine, and it slowly but surely impales him. He, like, kills people in the holodeck by beheading them. He throws a guy in an electric generator. Oh, and the jerk principal in this one is played by Link himself. Hey, excuse me, princess. Yeah, that guy, the douchey principal is Link from the terrible Zelda cartoon, and he gets a satisfying death where Jason beheads him and jump scares a guy with his severed head. So basically, Lexa Doig takes over as this sort of Ellen Ripley. She's like the professional final girl, telling them how they can outmaneuver Jason, outsmart him. But they're also using a lot of future tech. Jason kills like these Halo Spartans in this really cool hunt scene, showing how dangerous he is. They try to basically escape, but things go wrong. Samantha Flyaway Bird is in this, and she accidentally destroys the escape shuttle. They almost make it to, like, a space dock, but Jason gets a huge genocide kill when he kills their pilot, and they crash through the space bridge dock and kill an entire city full of innocent people. Yeah, Jason has his highest kill count in this. Nah, Jurassic Park 3 is 2001. Okay. Fly away, bird. Yeah, Samantha Bird was in this, and she accidentally kills herself crashing the shuttle. Boy, even in death, she's so pathetic. And can't fly. And I have so much fun with Jason X. This is the fun one. Jason is killing random people. They make this sexy battle android, like this Data girl. She's like a robot love interest for the dorky guy, and he gives her an upload. Yeah, not an upgrade, an upload, where she becomes like a sexy Terminator and thrashes Jason around. And Jason, like, is sort of in his zombie form for most of the movie up until the final act, where he quote-unquote dies, only for the weird nanite machine to activate and refix him. Basically, the ship is completely falling apart after Jason's crash, and they finally make contact with a rescue shuttle who will come pick up any of the survivors. But Jason gets this nanite upgrade and becomes the iconic Uber Jason, or as I like to call him, the Jason Ranger. Go, go, Jason Ranger. Yeah, Jason looks kind of like a hockey mask Power Ranger, but it is so cool. He just wanted his machete back. Yeah, then he beheads him. Nah, he was pissed. So, Uber Jason is a lot more stronger and more durable than he ever was. He basically becomes a cyborg zombie killer, and he easily beats the Terminator girl, beheads her, Part 8 style. It is pretty funny. This movie does have a sense of humor. It, like, embraces the cheesiness and dark comedy aspect, which is what made it a lot more fun. It's kind of like Part 6 in that way, where they know they're just stupid, mindless fun, but they're gonna have a ball with it. Uber Jason is an icon. Yeah, he definitely is. Uber Jason is much more upgraded and durable than Jason ever was before. He fights the survivors. They do fool him by using the holodeck to make a recreation of Crystal Lake, and I loved it. It's like a huge love letter to the past of this series, where Jason's back in Crystal Lake, they play his theme, and we get the sexy VR girls who get naked. My favorite scene. We love premarital sex. Ah, so iconic. And we get a return to the sleeping bag kill. Uber Jason kills the VR girls with the good old-fashioned sleeping bag kill, which I guess became a huge icon since it came back in the video game too. They fight Jason. It's very cool because the ship is falling apart. It's going to self-destruct soon. And basically, they manage to escape, but one of the Halo Spartans sacrifices himself fighting Uber Jason. And he knocks him down where they both burn up in Earth's atmosphere and die. Yeah, we finally get a chronological ending for the main timeline, Jason. Uber Jason dies, burning up in the atmosphere, but it ends on kind of an ambiguous ending. We see Uber Jason's mask fall to the lake, but there's also this teen couple out there thinking it's a shooting star, and they say, hey, it landed in the lake. You want to go see? And yeah, this teases Jason could be alive, and he might come back as Uber Jason for revenge. He's gonna be killing in the future now, or he could possibly be dead because we see his mask sink to the bottom of the sea. But either way, I love Jason X. It is dumb fun. I am not ashamed to admit, this is a horror classic. It belongs in the S-rank tier. Who doesn't love Jason in space? Much better than Pinhead in space, the Leprechaun in space, and I'm sure Scream in space. Between Power Rangers Time Force villain, you mean Ranzik, and Uber Jason, who do you think would win? Probably Uber Jason, since he is a lot more durable. And he's a lot cooler. He's the Jason Ranger. Yeah, Jason X, total classic. Just like our next one. Okay, we're coming up on the final two, folks. Gonna try and go to the bathroom one more time. I'll be back. One, two, Freddy's coming for you. Yep, this is the one with the crossover. Freddy versus Jason. Jason dukes it out with the man of our dreams, Freddy Krueger. And it is pretty awesome. Guess we won't get a Freddy Krueger in space. Yeah, we got enough of those. And I think everyone will agree, Freddy versus Jason is a slasher classic. I love it. Do I love it more than the final chapter? Nah. Okay. Freddy vs. Jason is a slasher classic. It is S tier. It is so cool. Better than Alien vs. Predator for sure, because it actually had the R rating. So, after Jason went to hell, we finally get a follow-up where Freddy Krueger apparently uses Jason. He gets a hold of his soul while in hell, and he resurrects Jason. Freddy Krueger is also dead at this point after the god-awful Freddy's dead, because apparently the Dream Master got killed by a pipe bomb in his pants. Oh, that's a bad story for another time. So, Freddy Krueger is also dead, and he can come back by spreading fear in Elm Street, because Freddy Krueger is basically the boogeyman. He lives off their nightmares and fears of him. However, people forgot about him. The town moved on, they covered up his entire existence. Nobody remembers Freddy, and that completely destroyed his power. However, Freddy believes he can come back by spreading fear in Elm Street, so he manipulates Jason, revives him, tricks him by posing as his mom, Mrs. Voorhees, and tells him he must go to Elm Street and kill the bad kids there. And through Jason, he's trying to spread fear again, make people remember him, make people fear that Freddy Krueger is back in town. Freddy Krueger is coming to Elm Street once again, and using Jason as kind of a minion to help spread that chaos. However, eventually Jason gets too into killing, and he starts stealing Freddy's stuff. And this leads to Freddy versus Jason, because Freddy soon gets irritated that Jason's kill-stealing him and stealing his spotlight, and he's at full power enough to finally combat the evil, deformed mountain man. Ranzik, I mean. Yeah, that's who it was, Ranzik. S tier, yeah, definitely. This movie has no flaws. It is peak and friggin' perfect. I agree, Emily. Well, outside of some of the dated CGI, but I can overlook that. Ah, yes, the movie where Grady from the Werewolf of Fever Swamp gets killed by Freddy. Yeah, I forgot he was in this movie. Rewatch this at least once a year. I rewatch it every October. I do like the premise of this. Freddy using Jason to kill people in Elm Street so people will remember him. It backfires, of course, so now Freddy has to take Jason down too. Yeah, that was a pretty awesome concept. This movie almost never got made. It was like through development hell so many times. Like, there were so many rumors, so many ideas. Like, Freddy Krueger was going to be a twist as Jason's father in one of the scripts. Very weird. Then they found a way to forget about me. I can't come back if nobody remembers me. I can't come back if nobody's afraid. I searched the bowels of hell. I found someone who will make them remember. The soundtrack absolutely slaps as well. How Can I Live? Beginning of the end slap. Yeah, this movie is so much fun. It is the best of both Freddy and Jason put together. Basically, Jason leaves Crystal Lake and he's killing a new group of idiot teenagers, but in Elm Street, and sort of invading Freddy's turf, and that's what starts the conflict between them. I thought Laurie was pretty hot, and so was the black girl, the singer. Can't remember. Yeah, we got a lot of sexy teenagers in this one getting back into those crazy antics. Both what you'd expect from an Elm Street and a Friday film. A lot of partying teenagers, a lot of cool characters. Also, it's nice to see both characters fight in both scenarios. Freddy has his strengths against Jason in the dream world, while Jason has his advantage against Freddy in the real world. Yeah, that was one thing people were kind of worried about, because Freddy's only powerful in the dream realm. Jason is a badass in real life, but in the dream realm, Freddy holds all the cards. And this does lead to them fighting multiple times. We do see Jason does fight Freddy eventually in the dream, and Freddy does get sucked into the real world because that's his weakness. I agree, Emily, nice soundtrack. The black woman's name is Kia. Okay, thank you. Laurie and Kia are both very pretty. I thought they were super hot. One of them got honorable mention on my Final Girls list, which you should totally watch. So yeah, basically our Final Girls, Laurie and Kia, are trying to solve the mystery. They learn who these killers are, and we basically dive into the lore of what made them both good while they're surviving as two undead serial killers are haunting their peaceful Elm Street. A lot of very creative kills. Jason gets very cool kills. Freddy finally snaps back into action and gets some awesome dream nightmare sequences. Robert Englund is at his A game in this movie. The one sad thing is they did not get Kane Hodder back, and Kane really wanted to throw down with Freddy, but for some reason they got a new guy instead. I guess they didn't like Kane Hodder back on Jason X. Though a few plot points are a bit predictable, like Laurie's father not being the actual killer of her mother, but Freddy was, of course. Yeah, there is a ton of cliches in this movie, but you kind of overlook them when Freddy and Jason are in the spotlight. Yeah, of course, the dad didn't kill her mom. He acts like a serial killer all throughout, but no, it was really Freddy. The dad, I guess, took the fall or something, or mercy killed her because Freddy was doing bad things. Yeah, some very weird plot points in this, I won't lie. Yeah, Freddy versus Jason, they have a fight, they're trying to solve the mystery. We get a return to West Hills, or Weston Hills, the asylum from Dream Warriors, and they get the Hypnosil drug, which helps them stay awake. They eventually force a confrontation between Freddy and Jason because they eventually realize that the two killers are not working hand in hand. They have become bitter enemies. Freddy drugs Jason and puts him into a dream. We get a return of the infamous possession plot point where Freddy possesses the stupid stoner kid and uses him to drug Jason with a ton of knockout drugs so he can kill him in the dream. Freddy's playing pinball with Jason's body in the dream fight was awesome. Yeah, this movie definitely had fun. It is goofy and campy as hell, but you can't help but laugh and smile and feel entertained by it all. Yeah, they fight first in the dream realm. Freddy is beating up Jason, but realizes he's shrugging off a lot of his hits, up until we find out that Jason's afraid of water, which I call bullcrap on. It's like, the guy is swimming in water in half these movies. He is not afraid. Like, oh, well, it's because he drowned. Yeah, he's afraid of dying, but I don't think water is his weakness, but it is for this film. Yeah, he weakens Jason, and we get a return to his flashback in Crystal Lake. I do actually like the retcon that Jason was kind of bullied and made fun of by the kids and forced in to swim in the lake where he drowned. He was like trying to prove himself, and they pushed him in, and he basically died drowning when the camp counselors were making love or partying instead of watching him. So yeah, Jason basically drowns in the water. Freddy nearly succeeds in killing him, but the teenagers manage to revive him in this hilariously dark scene where Key is forced to give him mouth to mouth. I would say you could try the chest hits first, but whatever. Jason wakes up just as she breathes on him, and they go crashing in the Crystal Lake. I love how they don't question the stoner's different voice after Freddy possessed him. They're like, okay, you sound weird as fuck, bye. Yeah, Freddy's voice came through. Let me handle this, bitch. What? Yeah, the final guy is played by Dipper from Gravity Falls. Pretty funny seeing Dipper fight Freddy and Jason. Yeah, the stoner friend dies. Like, pretty much most of the teenagers are either being picked off by them in the beginning or dying along their quest to stop them. The survivors eventually make it to Crystal Lake trying to lure Jason back, and Laurie goes to sleep to try and pull Freddy out of the dream realm. It almost goes wrong, but eventually they finally get Freddy in reality, where we get the smackdown between a real-life Freddy and Jason on Crystal Lake's turf this time. Let me handle this, bitch. Yeah, that was funny. They don't question why he sounds like Robert Englund all of a sudden. And pretty much we live up to all the hype. The entire final act is basically a one-on-one Mortal Kombat fight between Freddy versus Jason. We do see Freddy's actually pretty smart and crafty. He's not entirely toothless in the real world. He doesn't have his fancy powers, but he's using like his environment attacks. Between Brendan Fletcher being in this and Leprechaun Origins, I'd rather have him in this film than Origins, which probably gave him reason to become Seamus the Leprechaun on the Haunting Hour. Yeah. Shout out to the trailer exclusive Take Your Bets line. And the killing is very cool. It is brutal. They are merciless. They're pulling Mortal Kombat moves. Eventually, like, the teens set the place ablaze and blow up Camp Crystal Lake, sending the killers flying. Freddy gets out of the water one last time and tries to kill them with Jason's machete, but Jason Halo assassinates him with his own power glove, where Freddy dies and Laurie beheads him, saying, "Welcome to my world, bitch," which is what he's been saying all movie. Yep, kind of like a kid-friendly version of Leprechaun 3. "Welcome to my world, bitch." Yep, she turns that around on him and beheads him, where Laurie and Dipper get a happy ending. But we get our twist ending, where Jason rises out of the lake carrying Freddy's head, and Freddy winks at the camera, which confused a lot of people. So, I do think, like, a lot of people were pissed because they felt that Jason won the fight. It's like, I think Freddy winking at the camera is implying that this might be a dream, that Jason is trapped in Jason's back in the dream world again, and he and Freddy are still at each other's throats by the end. Him winking, showing that he's still alive, is like teasing that he has Jason trapped now, and it leaves it ambiguous as to, oh, you can decide who won. Did Jason win and really kill Freddy, or does Freddy have Jason, like, trapped in the dream realm? But, yeah, this is awesome. Freddy vs. Jason is awesome. One of my crossover partners actually said she hated it and found it overrated, but I don't get why. This movie's fun. This movie's so awesome. It has Freddy and Jason at their peak and a really epic crossover. I was completely satisfied with all the screen time they got, and the epic battle really lived up to all the hype. It is a slasher classic. I'm pretty sure the wink is to acknowledge that the fight is definitely not over and Freddy and Jason will both still go on. Okay. Yeah, I accept that too, but a lot of people were pissed because it felt like Jason won. Yeah, no, don't you watch horror movies? It's never over. Alright, so we made it to the end. Our final Friday movie. Friday the 13th, the reboot. Shout out to the scrap Pinhead ending. Oh yeah, I'll give that one more. Okay, so Freddy vs. Jason's original ending is Freddy and Jason, after they died, would both be in hell, and then Pinhead from Hellraiser steps in and chains them to the wall, asking, "Gentlemen, is there a problem?" Hinting that there was going to be a sequel, Freddy vs. Jason vs. Pinhead. And I really wish we got that ending. I know we never got the movie, but Freddy, Jason, and Pinhead all being together on screen would have been such a historical moment in horror cinema. The Pinhead ending should have been made. I hope some fan films make it, because that would have been so awesome, seeing Pinhead as, like, their referee. But yeah, Freddy vs. Jason, even without Pinhead, is still pretty cool. So, on to the last movie. Then there's that alternative ending where that boyfriend becomes possessed by Freddy. Yeah, that one was lame and very confusing. Yeah, Dipper becomes Freddy and he rapes/murders Laurie. It was weird, and a lot of people didn't like it because they questioned where Jason was. Which, yeah, definitely glad that was scrapped. Alright, so let's do this. The Platinum Dunes, Friday the 13th. Oh, there was another scrapped original ending where Laurie and her boyfriend were banging, and then, oh, that's the one he was talking about. And then a few minutes later, it shows him hurting Laurie was Freddy. Glad that got scrapped. Yeah, that one was very confusing, and as somebody who crushed on Laurie, I was glad she wasn't killed. Yeah, glad that one was scrapped, but personally, the Pinhead ending was the one I really wish we did get. Alright, so I know you're trying to bide time, audience, but we do have to talk about the last one. The reboot. The Friday the 13th reset button. Platinum Dunes' sort of remake/new timeline for Jason Voorhees. This one pretty much starts the franchise all over again. We return to Jason's grassroots, where Jason's back to being the mystical, supernatural boogeyman of Crystal Lake, and he comes back to life where he basically kills a bunch of idiot teenagers partying on Crystal Lake because they intruded upon his territory, and we slowly learn about the Jason legend all over again. So, I might piss off a lot of people, but I actually thought this movie was good. Like, okay, it's not gonna best all of the other ones, but this one actually felt like it understood the assignment, as Emily would say. It understood what made Friday the 13th operate. It knew what fans loved, it knew the formula, it knew how to make Jason cool. This one definitely understood what Friday the 13th was about and did stuff basically just to send a love letter to fans. It is a love letter for this franchise. Basically, this is pretty much Jason versus Dean Winchester, the movie, but I really love it. I actually think this is one of the rare good Platinum Dunes remakes. A huge blessing after that god-awful Freddy remake. Out of all the crappy horror reboots remakes we got, I don't think Friday the 13th remake was that bad. It's actually solid. Yeah, I actually really like this one. This one felt like a true return to form for the saga. It's basically idiot teenagers with Caitlin Snow from CW's The Flash. They go out partying in the woods, and Jason comes back to basically kill them and take over. This is a more territorial, primal Jason again, akin to his Part 2 and Part 3 versions. Yeah, unlike Nightmare on Elm Street's remake, which was crap. Yeah, it was awful. Jackie Earle Haley deserved better. He could have been such a cool Freddy, but the movie was garbage. They screwed that up. So, I honestly might put this one on Slasher Classics. I do love it. It is stupendous. Like that chick's boobs. Ah, the remake. My own personal hell without the Clockwork Orange torture. Stop it, please. I beg you. Sorry, Christopher, but I actually like this movie. I actually really enjoy it. I will put it at the bottom of the good movies, of course, but I do consider it a slasher classic. It is very fun, and Jason is back to scary as heck in this movie. Dean Winchester is in this movie from Supernatural, and he's pretty much playing the replacement Rob Deere, but he's a lot more effective as a badass. He's hunting down, like, his sister. His sister was a previous Jason victim who was abducted, and he is trying to help find her, whether she's dead or alive. He crosses paths with Caitlin Snow, that Daniel Panabaker is in this movie, and they team up to help find each other, whilst undergoing a cutesy teen romance story. I know some people blow it off as like a CW kind of horror tale, kind of like how Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer were, but I think it's fun. Jason is so savage in this movie. He is back to his primal hunter self. He moves a lot faster. He's more of a kind of a poacher. He treats killing the teenagers more like he's hunting animals. He has bear traps. He uses archery. He stealth kills people. I love how smart this Jason kinda is, even laying traps around his territory. Oh yeah, he also has his underground tunnels, which is supposed to explain the plot hole of how Jason teleports, how he always, like, appears at a different end of the area. Yeah, Jason has kind of even an alarm system that triggers if you're entering his turf. Like, this is a very smart and vicious Jason. Like, he is very cool. I love the guy playing him. The one bad thing I have to say about this Jason is that we never see his face. He's not unmasked, and when he is, it's only in glimpses or he's in shadows. We never see what this Jason looks like unmasked. He does wear the sack head in the opening act of the movie, but that eventually gets tarnished in a fight with one of his victims, and he finds the hockey mask from some dumb weirdo hillbilly. Yeah, he gets the hockey mask, at least in the first half hour. This movie doesn't waste your time. They know what you're here for. They know we're here to watch the J-Man being cool and going on stealth kills. And the teen drama is kind of secondary. A criticism I do agree with is that the cast is a lot more forgettable or unlikable. Yeah, this one does overdose on the idiots or jackasses Jason is supposed to kill to make you cheer him on. Special mention going to Trent, the idiot bully character. This guy is like the most over the top douchebag in the movie. And they pad out like his ultimate death for a bit too long. He's like being a dick. He's mouthing off to Dean Winchester, being a jerk to everyone. He even cheats on his own girlfriend because she showed sympathy for a guy just searching for his lost sister. But he does get one of the most satisfying deaths in the series. This one, the kids actually catch on much sooner that there's a crazy guy in the woods hunting them. And, which I do like, it did spice up the formula. Oh yeah, by the way, yeah, your boyfriend is cheating on you as well. Yeah, unfortunately that never gets addressed. He's like cheating on her with Julian Guile, who my friend Jon Snow really crushes on, because her boobs are stupendous. Yeah, this also has a lot of the best nudity in the show too, which definitely got it in S tier. Yeah, say what you want, but I do like Michael Bay's penchant for hot chicks. And Friday the 13th did not disappoint on the sexy teen antics. Really good stuff. That even better as a horror movie too, because Jason is really merciless in this. He does not like toy with his food. He doesn't play with his food. He's not playing the slow game. He is out to kill. He is like viciously gutting, stabbing people. He stabs like a cop guy right through a door. Really savage kills. I do like one of the scarier scenes is when he grabs the girlfriend Trent was having an affair with, and he's like holding her tight and suffocating her, and she's like so scared and petrified, can't breathe or escape, and he slowly but surely like shoves her on one of the antler horns decorating their hall. Yeah, he was in Transformers bullying Shia. That's right. Trent, the idiot bully in Friday the 13th, is actually the idiot bully from the Transformers movie, the Michael Bay one, where he was picking on Shia LaBeouf. And Michael Bay has joked that they share a timeline in our canon. Yeah, let that sink in, folks. Jason Voorhees and Transformers are in the same universe. Yeah, I can't wait to see Jason versus Megatron next. So it's kind of the usual shtick for at least half the movie, Jason picking off idiot teenagers and morons who are expendable, who get killed by him one by one. He's in the shadows, hunting, lurking, actually being a smart killer this time, and trying to play cat and mouse, outmaneuvering the other. It isn't until the final act where this movie truly formed its own identity, where we find out Dean Winchester's sister is indeed still alive. Apparently, Jason did not kill her in the opening. He took her hostage and has her chained in his basement. Why? Because she looks like his dead mother, Mrs. Voorhees. Yeah, in a total callback to part 2, they do the Mrs. Voorhees look-alike thing again. Dean Winchester's sister has been chained up in here for like years or something, and Jason is like feeding her dead bodies and dead animals to keep her alive. It is honestly very creepy and super creative, I will say. Like, I actually like that idea that Jason became like a yandere for this girl and is holding her down and chaining her in his basement because it's part of his psychotic delusions that this is his mom somehow. It's, like, very creative, honestly, I will say. And eventually, Dean and Caitlin Snow investigate the abandoned Crystal Lake, where they uncover Jason. They flee back to the house where Jason kills all their friends. Trent gets the most satisfying death, finally. I love that. He's like, they're being chased by Jason. He gets separated from the group because he's an idiot. He loses his gun, and a driver stops by on the road offering him a lift, but he takes his slow, sweet time trying to check if it's actually Jason driving the car, and we find out, no, it's just some old redneck guy, but then Jason stealth teleports behind him, then easily kills him and impales him on the tow truck. It is very immensely satisfying, I will say. Trent's death was very well deserved, and they knew exactly what they were doing with this guy. Yeah, the idiot bully dies, pretty much the funniest yet darkest death in the show, and it's down to the trio, Caitlin Snow, Dean Winchester, and Dean's sister. They eventually find and save the sister, and in a surprise twist, Caitlin Snow dies, even though she was supposed to be the final girl. I was very sad to see her go. She was the one death I actually felt sorry for. It's like, oh, Danielle Panabaker dies in this movie, dang. Like, she's great. For this film, I would give it like a decent 6 or 7 out of 10. Me, I would give it a gold skull, but just barely. Just barely. Don't worry, Reboot Defenders, I do have your back. You should be happy it barely makes the S tier for me, but I will say it is fun. And the final act basically copies a bit of part 2 and part 6. They're fighting Jason. They eventually make their way to the barn. Dean and his sister are last ones left, where she does the sweater trick to trick Jason into thinking she's Mrs. Voorhees. And Dean chains Jason while he's distracted and throws him into a wood chipper, and unfortunately the wood chipper doesn't saw him. Our first Friday movie with a wood chipper, and nobody gets thrown into it. I definitely did as well. Didn't expect Danielle to die in Friday the 13th. If only she was a Killer Frost. Yeah, then she could have at least won or survived. Yeah, I didn't see that coming. I will say that did subvert my expectations seeing Danielle Panabaker die because she was one of the likable characters in this. But no, Dean Winchester does his supernatural moves, and they take out Jason. They strangle him, and I think snap his neck with the chain rope in the wood chipper. Jason, quote-unquote, dies, where they bury him back in Crystal Lake, until we get our twist ending. Surprise, Jason's not dead, where he jumps out, and he jumps Dean Winchester's sister again, out of revenge. And that's where the movie ends, leaving it ambiguous if she died or not, and with a love letter to the part 1 ending. She was also in Sky High for Disney Channel. Yeah, I really liked that. Danielle Panabaker was good Poison Ivy in Sky High. But yeah, she was also good in the Friday the 13th reboot, which I think is severely underrated. Okay, it does not top these classics, definitely, but I think it is a slasher classic. This is one of the good Platinum Dunes remakes, and I had so much fun. I would actually watch this again. I watched it like every Halloween now. I bought the Killer Cut, which expanded upon some of the scenes and got us a lot more hardcore Jason stuff. Really love it. I absolutely like this reboot, and I will actually be on the Defender side, saying it definitely deserves a lot more respect. And I would watch it over some of these ones, definitely. Alright, so that pretty much completes our Friday the 13th list. Sorry, we're not counting Never Hike Alone. Those are their own things, only canon Jason stuff, but maybe next time we will if we add the prequel series. This is, for now, my canon Jason tier list and my thoughts on them. So if you're new here, here's the ranking one last time of my tier list. So, Dead Fuck, pretty much Jason Goes to Hell. It is the worst movie in the franchise. Absolutely hate it. Destroyed the lore. Destroyed Jason's image. Kane Hodder deserved better. Then Jason Takes a Boat. This one is another terrible one. It is false advertising, total bait and switch, and a completely waste of a cool concept. Then, none of them made Roy Burns Wannabe, which is pretty good, because that shows you how much of a fan I am. I just love the movie so much that I gave them some pass. No Roy Burns Wannabe here. Pretty decent ranking. Oh, thank you, Lilith. Glad you made it. Then, we have Beta Shelley. These are the ones that are okay. Friday the 13th Part 3D. It had parts I did like, and I ended up liking it a lot more on my rewatch, but it is still very flawed, and screw that annoying 3D gimmick. Then, Part 5, the Roy Burns chapter. This one I actually liked a lot more on my later viewings. It had a good idea, but a totally botched execution. And worst of all, poser Jason. Roy Burns could have been great, but unfortunately they screwed the pooch. Then Awesome Mask, the original, the classic Friday the 13th Part 1. I do like it. Unfortunately, it got outclassed by its later entries. This is still considered a horror classic, and for good reason. Betsy Palmer totally makes this movie. I would still recommend it. And Friday the 13th Part 7, Jason vs. Carrie. This one had its flaws, but I think the concept was definitely fun. The concept is very outrageous. Seeing Jason fight Carrie definitely had a lot of goofy charm to it. I will say it is still watchable. It is not top tier, but it definitely is just dumb, mindless entertainment at its best. Then the slasher classics. These are my favorite Jason movies ever. The reboot, which I am surprisingly merciful towards. I had fun with it. I think it did a lot of fun new stuff. Not enough to dethrone the good legendary stuff, but it is so cool, and I really like the guy playing Jason. This one is a very worthy reboot, and I would actually declare it a good horror remake. Then Jason X. Jason in Space. This one is stupid, but it's an enjoyable stupid. And I love how it really had fun with its concept. It pretty much embraces the sheer insanity it had. It gave us Uber Jason. It is outrageous. It is so fun. And it is very creative with its premise. I am not ashamed to admit, I consider this one of the best movies of the series. Then Freddy vs. Jason, epic crossover. It has both the greatest strengths of Friday the 13th and Elm Street combined, and seeing Jason finally sharing the spotlight with Robert Englund's Freddy definitely solidified it as a horror masterpiece. Then Friday the 13th, the final chapter, which wasn't the finale, but it served as a pretty dang good attempt. This is the one fans love the most. It is the formula at its best, the most savage Jason, one of the most hardcore horror movies ever. I still consider it a great slasher. I just personally prefer the other two a bit more. What do you think of Jason wearing the haunted mask? Oh, that would be creepy. He'd be even more powerful. Jason versus Carly Beth. Pretty good idea. Then next is Part 2. Guys, I have such a huge soft spot for this movie. I think it is one of the scariest movies in this saga. Jason is played dead serious, and it is so creepy. I love this movie. I love Ginny. She made my hottest Final Girls, which you should check out. I think the sack mask is okay, and Jason is at his most legendary status in this. It is cool seeing the myth of Jason in action for the very first time, and it is why Part 2 is my second place favorite. And up top is Jason Lives. He's the man behind the mask. This is epic. It is awesome. This is the top tier movie for the saga. Tommy Jarvis and Jason's final battle is still one of the greatest movies I've ever seen. I love Jason Lives so much. It is popcorn entertainment, and it is where this franchise truly solidified itself as an all-time favorite of the series. And that completes my Jason ranking. Friday the 13th, as I said, is not high art, but it is dumb fun for horror fans. It is a very simple story, but they clearly had fun with it. There are some bad movies here because, of course, there are. It's like a low-budget franchise with tons of cash cows, but some of them were very much big money makers. I still highly recommend the Friday the 13th saga. I reviewed the Never Hike Alone, the first two movies. Not sure if I'll do the second one, only if there's like some interest yet. Pretty much agree with this tier list. Thank you. Thank you, Shadowlink. I'm so glad I agree. As you can see, I am a huge Jason fan because a lot of them made S-rank classics because Jason is a horror icon, okay? He's up there with Freddy and Michael and Ghostface. Friday the 13th is a great series, and I recommend it. Will warn you, they're not deep or profound horror movies, but it is pretty fun if you love your cheesy horror. Jason Voorhees rocks. He's the man behind the mask, and he came back strong. So that completes my tier list, and we'll be ending this stream very soon. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, or just tune in for more videos posted here on Wolf Entertainment. I'm your host, Catastrophe, and I wish you luck this Friday the 13th. See you later.